All right, what is going on, everybody? Oh man, let's see. Like Mark Martin fan for life just said, should be a quiet night. Nothing to talk about here today. So let's see here. We got the Bubba Wallace suspension. I'm sure a lot of people want to talk about that. Then you got how NASCAR handled Noah Gragson, Carson Hocevar, whoever you want to throw in there, and how NASCAR will handle stuff like this going forward. You got the potential Kevin Harvick retirement, the Gene Haas league. Then you got the situation at Stewart Haas Racing, where you've got one, two, three, four cars, and you've only got basically right now two drivers because he said Almirola and Harvick are also going to retire. So right now you've basically got Custer and Briscoe, and apparently Tony Stewart wants Custer on the chopping block. You got the Kurt Busch retirement, or at least where he's going part time. He's no longer full time. Then you got Toyota and Ford. They're going to have a new car next season, or at least a new nose, according to Bozzy when he talked to Denny Hamlin. You got the Ty Dillon going to Spire, where I think that's going to help the whole organization, especially Corey LaJoy. Brandon Clements has decided not to appeal his rear bumper repair. So just so much stuff to talk about today. So I will jump into the comments and we'll start there. Let's see. Bumblebee got her a deer. Super moderator, Epileptic Bumblebee. Check her out on Twitch and Twitter and wherever else she's at. Let them know where else you're at there as well. But she got her a 10-pointer today. Got her a deer, and she's gonna have to sell her other tags. So keep her in your thoughts and prayers because she has suffered a little bit of an injury. Camaro 50, what's going on, buddy? Tom Harris says Bubba should have gotten suspended for the rest of the year, $100,000 fine, 100 driver points and owner points. He could have deleted Larson from Earth so easily. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. Me personally, I'm okay with the one race suspension because I'm glad NASCAR at least suspended him. You know, I was worried they wouldn't because of the aforementioned Noah Gragson. He did something similar. They didn't suspend him. Carson Hocevar did something similar. They didn't suspend him. So they did at least suspend him. Now, walking across a live racetrack, he probably could have got some money for that. So you can nitpick it. But at the end of the day, I'm glad NASCAR actually stood up and suspended him. And hopefully going forward, they will suspend other drivers when they do unsafe stuff. Because with this particular car in the Cup Series, where we've seen so many people get backed into the wall and have concussions or have other problems and stuff like that, this is no longer the boys have at it era, or at least it doesn't need to be, because this car is not safe. And probably in retrospect, we never should have had the boys have at it era, as much as that was cool to say and all that stuff. So hopefully, going forward, these guys will drive smarter and realize that these aren't toys. People get hurt. So that's where I stand on that one. NASCAR also suspended the 51 JCR crew, Mark Setzer, for one race and fined him $25,000. The 51 Jeremy Clements team 40 points for body modification found in pre-qualifying tech at the Las Vegas race. So yeah, that's what I was just talking about. Moulton, good for bringing that up. Yeah, Jeremy Clements is not going to appeal that. And he said it in a really classy way. He said, look, the way we repaired it is not how NASCAR had it in their guidelines for us to repair it. So he pretty much just said, yeah, we're going to take this. We're going to take this because we did wrong here. So that is actually a really stand-up thing to do. I actually really appreciate Jeremy Clements. He's a stand-up guy, and he's rapidly becoming one of my very favorite race car drivers. I am definitely team Jeremy Clements there. Bob Puckett says should be plenty of content to talk about today. Yeah, that's 100% it. Let's see. Bumblebee said I nailed it. Those are the two she's mainly on. Escobar says Bubba needs to go to anger management. Yeah, he does have a short fuse. He really I understand getting mad and paying somebody back, but then he lost it. And they were just talking about on Radioactive, I saw before I came over here and started doing this. One of the spotters up there said he just walked 150 yards to go push a guy around. What's up with that? He's basically inferring if I'm gonna walk 150 yards, I'm gonna get my money's worth, because he was assuming at that point, I guess Bubba was gonna get suspended anyway. So yeah, a lot of times in life, we've all been mad, but usually if you walk that far, you get that far down the road, you calm down. So maybe, maybe he needs to see somebody about that. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and throw stones because I know when I was younger, I was a hothead too at moments, and I had to get it under control. So whatever he needs to do to get it under control, because basically at the end of the day, probably he took out Christopher Bell. He could have just kept going. His car really was not injured that bad. He took himself out. He had a really fast race car, took himself out of the race. They probably could have fixed it if anything was really super wrong with it. And he still probably would have had a good finish. So if he had just kept his emotions in check, he probably could have had a pretty decent finish as well. So definitely that is one thing. He's definitely got the red mist. I was watching a movie. It's a movie called Go-Karts. I think it was made in either New Zealand or Australia. It stars Richard Roxburgh, and it's pretty good. It's sort of like The Sandlot, but for go-karts. It's a good movie. So check it out. It's on Netflix right now. It's called Go-Karts. I'm not sponsored by them. It's just a pretty good movie. It's a kids movie, but it's pretty good. Chris Davis said was great news. One wise guy, I believe so. Let's see. OnlyFans McLaren 720 GT3. What's going on, buddy? HRE announces that the 61 of Chase Purdy will not return to the team after this year. Still plan to field 2 trucks in 2023. If HRE and Moffitt become a championship contender again with him, so that's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of movement in trucks, I think. That's a really good question. Who do we put in the 45 this weekend, says Two Penny Puppet. Me personally, I would put either John Hunter Nemechek or Corey Heim in there. Outside chance of Sammy Smith. Those would be the first 3 that pop into my mind from the Toyota camp. Chandler Smith would be on there, but obviously he's going to Chevrolet next year, so why would you put him in there? But those 3 would be the ones that jump out to me. Obviously, they've probably already done a seat fitting for John Hunter Nemechek. I think Denny Hamlin said that they had done a seat fitting for John Hunter Nemechek. So he would probably be the first one on that list because they've probably already got his seat set up. So he will probably be the first guy in there. And outside chance, like I said, of Corey Heim and Sammy Smith. Sammy Smith's really tall, so I don't know. Or if I'm remembering correctly, he's taller than me, so I assume that's really tall. As you know, I'm not 6'5", though. Somebody thought I was 6'5" the other day, and I was like, I'm not close to 6'5". Let's see. Howdy from Canada. Too much drama this year, and I appreciate the super chat. Two Penny Puppet, by the way. Robert Mark says, howdy from Canada. Too much drama here this year, and in my town too lately. Fire trucks and sirens all the time. Weird days. Spooky Halloween. So yeah, I think we had a full moon the other night. At least I don't know how that works. I guess y'all had a full moon in Canada too. I don't know. I'm not good at that stuff. But we had a full moon here, and they were tearing up race cars and going crazy. So that might be what it is. Might be the full moon. But NASCAR has been a soap opera this year, and that's why I started that Bubba episode with just when you thought there couldn't be no more drama, Bubba Wallace said, "Here, hold my beer." And there you go. We've got even more drama now. Douglas Serrano, what's going on, man? Good to see you on here. Bumblebee says, what I feel got Bubba deleted for a race was the fact his actions taking Bell out and altering the playoff picture had a lot to do with it. Yeah, so that's probably a good point too. NASCAR does not like non-playoff drivers messing with other drivers that are in the playoffs, and so that probably factored into it too. I think it was probably a combination of everything. I think if it had just been one thing, he probably would have been okay. But then he did the walk on a hot racetrack. Then he pushed Kyle Larson around. Then a lot of people are bringing up he made contact with the official. I don't think that's as big a deal because we saw an official get hurt in the Ty Gibbs Sam Mayer fight. The official actually hurt his knee. And nothing was done to either one of them. So I don't think the official getting pushed was as big a deal as people think to NASCAR. Now, it might be a big deal to them personally, but I just think, and then in the interview, he wasn't the kindest to Marty Snyder. So I think a combination of all that stuff is probably why he got the 1 race suspension. Because like I said, we've seen other guys in the past, Noah Gragson and Carson Hocevar, this season, at least, they have done similar hooking incidents. But NASCAR said the official reason for the suspension is the hooking. at speed. So that is NASCAR's official reason for it. Swan Dog says, "What's up from Tennessee? What's up? Go Vols! You got the Crimson Tide there the other day, so good for y'all. I can't wait to see the 2023 Daytona. I'm about over this season. I can't wait till KFB is in the 8 either. LOL." So yeah, that's a good point. I actually didn't even have this on my list of things to talk about, but Kyle Busch is going to lose Ben Bayshore for the rest of the season, basically. So he's not even the Ben Bayshore Kyle Busch deal is over with, and I know a lot of Kyle Busch fans are happy about that. But yeah, as much as I love this sport and as much as I love covering it, this has been a year full of drama, and I'm kind of over it myself. I'm ready for it to be over with, and I don't want to wish any time away ever. But I'm definitely ready for this season to be over with, so we can talk about more positive things, because it's just been a lot of negative things. And I'm not a negative person. I really like to talk about positive stuff, or at least I try to be a positive person. It's up to everybody's interpretation if they think I'm positive or not. But I try to be a positive person. I like the sport. I want people to enjoy the sport like I enjoy it. That's a big reason why I do this channel. So hopefully next season it'll be a lot more positive news than this season. But we'll just have to see. Chris R says, "Hope all is well," and I think and respect Larson for not feeding into it and being the bigger man in this. Yeah, Kyle Larson made some good comments. He said, "Look, we've all been there as race car drivers," and then he said, "Well, maybe not everybody, but I know, at least me personally, I've lost my cool on a racetrack too, and I've retaliated as well. So I don't want to throw stones at him, or I'm paraphrasing at this point, but he basically was like, look, we've all done it." So he didn't throw him under the bus and say, hey, he should be suspended for X amount of races. So Kyle Larson is at least being reasonable about it by basically saying, hey, look, we've all been there. I've done that before too. So it was pretty cool of him to say that. And I think we've all been in situations where we've lost our temper and the best side of us hasn't come out. So, I mean, I think everybody can relate to that. But I think definitely a one race suspension also is fair, because he did hook the guy at speed and then walk across a hot racetrack. I mean, there was just several things that you don't do. Let's see. Bumblebee said also, not to mention he was in Kurt Busch's car. So yeah, also he's driving his teammate's car, the 45, and the other car it's in the incident is a Hendrick car. So both of those drivers are out because of the new car. So that's just another layer to it. It's just one of those deals. Like, it's just a multitude of things that added up to why this is a suspension, most likely. T-Van, what's going on, man? Good to see you on here. Home Guy says, Stapleton 42 YouTube channel has the guy that rebuilt the 1998 Las Vegas Mark Martin car. Good interview with Mark too. Yeah, I think he's got at least 2 Mark Martin videos on that thing. He visited Mark Martin's, I guess Mark Martin's got some type of like museum where he's got all of his trophies or something like that. He visited that and he talks to Mark Martin in that. That might be the same video, or it might be 2 videos. But yeah, if you haven't checked out Stapleton 42 and you sort of like the NASCAR travel vlogs and a little bit of history, Stapleton 42, he goes to a lot of really cool places. He's got another cool one where he finds Darrell Waltrip's old Western Auto hauler, I believe. And that's a pretty cool one too. I like that one. He's got a really awesome, if you're a Richard Petty fan, he's got a really awesome one with Richard Petty where it's a long one. But so, have some time to watch that one, because I think it's about an hour, or it might be more than an hour. But he talks with Dale Inman for a right good while. And the one with Richard Petty, I mean, all of his ones are good, but those are just some of my favorite ones. So definitely check out Stapleton 42. He's got a great channel, and he's killing it. He does a great job on YouTube with his content, in my opinion. John Hunter Nemechek or Trevor Bayne in the 45 this weekend. Yeah, I hadn't factored in Trevor Bayne. Trevor Bayne could definitely wheel that thing too. That would be a cool story for Trevor Bayne to actually come back to. So that would be really neat. Bubba needs more than 1 race suspension, says T-Van. I mean, I'm not going to get into that. I'm surprised NASCAR actually sat him down for a race. So that's my 2 cents, because like I said, they haven't for other drivers. But like I said, I know NASCAR said the reason was because he hooked him at speed, but we've seen other drivers hook him at speed. I think it was a combination of he hooked him at speed, walked across a hot track, then pushed the driver, then was still mad when he was doing the interview with Marty Snyder. I think it was just a combination of everything. And also he was driving the 45, the guy that basically was out. The number he's running is a guy that's out because this car's unsafe, or at least has a design flaw. I'm not going to say the whole car is unsafe, but it has a design flaw where if it hits in a certain way, it is unsafe. Douglas Serrano says he also wants to see Trevor Bayne in the 45 next weekend. That would be cool. Let's see. Tom Harris. Bubba thinks he's untouchable. He needs to be brought down a few notches. Look, he's a young guy. He's really confident, and he is super confident to the point where he's cocky. So that definitely rubs a lot of people the wrong way. I'll put it to you like this: when I was younger, I always pulled for guys that were like really cocky, like Allen Iverson and stuff like that. Now that I'm older, I more gravitate toward the guys that are humble. So it is what it is. Like it's to me, it's an age thing. I always look at it like that. I was like, dude, if I'm like 19 or 20, I'm appreciating Bubba Wallace being cocky and stuff like that. But then as the older I get, I'm like, I tend to go toward the more humble guys. So it's just part of it. And I think a lot of people, if you look at the people you pulled for when you were younger, and if you were like older when they were younger, you'd probably be like, he would probably irritate me now, but back then, I was all about it. So it's all part of the process. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from. He's definitely cocky, but there's a lot of race car drivers that are cocky. There's no doubt about that. William Wallace got off easy, I think, says old home guy. I don't know. NASCAR is so inconsistent with their penalties. They're so inconsistent with your penalties. It's really hard to say like, oh, they should have done this or that. I definitely think one race is reasonable because we've seen in the past. Let's just go all the way back to like Carl Edwards, Matt Kenseth, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch. In those situations, they also got one race. So one race seems to be fair because if you look historically, like if you look back far enough, it seems to be one race is the deal. I can't really, other than Jeremy Mayfield, and that was for substance, and also AJ Allmendinger also for substances. I think other than substances, the most I've ever seen for aggressive driving or unsafe driving is one race. So I think that's probably what NASCAR based it on, if I'm guessing. TJ Moorshed says NBC with the camera on Kyle Busch as the left front comes off and the crowd goes wild. Quality NBC coverage in that moment, says TJ Moorshed. So and somebody on Twitter said every time they show Kyle Busch's tire coming off or they show Kyle Busch something bad happens to him, NBC always makes sure they turn the volume up so that they get the crowd cheering. So that was definitely, in somebody's opinion, a little bit of production value on the TV. Or maybe they're being accused of piping in sound to make villains out of certain drivers. You never know. I forget what football game I was watching, but they got busted for piping in sound. It might have been a baseball game too. But sometimes these networks get caught for piping in sound to make it sound a little more loud at the stadium than normal. And then sometimes the stadium itself will do it through the speakers. They'll pipe it in. So you never know. But I don't think they're doing that at NASCAR, and not through the speakers at least. But you never know. Camaro 50, I was wondering if, let me put my tinfoil hat on, crazy conspiracy guy. I was wondering if Wallace was still mad at Larson for putting him into the wall at the first Talladega race. I know it was months ago. Look, man, drivers have a long memory. So there is a good chance that was on his mind, especially when he got, drove aggressively. They didn't necessarily make a lot of contact, but Bubba Wallace definitely got the short end of the stick on the initial contact. And even Kyle Larson said, hey, look, it was my fault. And I can understand why he's mad. So that might have been, we might not have seen the previous races, what led up to that. That might have just been the final straw. Because I will say this, for the amount of contact made, he got super mad if it was just about that incident. So I think there was probably more to it than just that. Let's see here. What's your thoughts on Mark Martin not getting to see Jack Roush on Sunday? From what I read, Jack isn't getting around too well anymore. So maybe that's why. I don't know. Yeah, somebody else brought that up to me. I wasn't aware of that, but somebody said, what is the beef between Roush, Fenway, Keselowski now, or RFK, and Mark Martin? And I had no idea that any of that had gone down. He said nobody from Roush came up to speak to him. And today, I thought it was interesting that he congratulated and thanked Toyota for allowing him to put his car on the track. And given the context of nobody came up and spoke with him, I thought that was interesting. Was he maybe promoting Toyota because he was upset at Roush Fenway? You never know. Like, I don't want to read too much into it, but like I said, I didn't even catch it when it happened. So I thought that was interesting. John Hummer Nemechek in the 45 at Homestead. John Hunter Nemechek's time to shine, says Molten Rage. Chris Vickery says NASCAR finally manned up. Yeah, NASCAR should have been suspending these guys. And if you watch the channel, if you're new to this and haven't seen the channel, I've been fairly consistent on this all season. I've always said when drivers are driving crazy, they need to be, or driving aggressively, whatever you want to call it, they need to be suspended because these things aren't toys. We don't want to see anybody getting hurt. I've even said it when they're throwing fists in the and I get piled on for that. Every time I say when they fight in the pits, they should be suspended for a race too. I always get piled on. Everybody's like, "Oh, what about hockey? You think they should be suspended in hockey when they do it?" I'm like, "Yeah, because you can get hurt. Like this isn't the '80s. We know what concussions do now. So anytime somebody, I don't know, it is what it is." Jimmy Adam, or Grandpa. So what was the total punishment for Bubba? It's just going to be one race, and that's it. They're not going to do any points or any money. I don't mind them not doing points because they're taking the race away from him. So that's one race's worth of points anyway. He misses the race, which I think to a driver, missing a race is the bigger deal anyway. The monetary thing, a lot of people got on that because he walked across a hot racetrack and all this and that and the other thing. But I think it'll stick in his mind longer that he missed a race than anything. So I think taking the race away is the worst thing you can do to any race car driver. That's why I think whenever a race car driver does something crazy like this, they should miss a race. And that's why I said with Noah Gragson, Carson Hocevar, when they drive dirty like that or drive crazy or aggressive or whatever you want to call it, they should miss a race because that will clean up the sport and you'll see less of this, especially in the truck series and in Xfinity. If you start sitting drivers for driving like dummies, they'll stop racing like that and you'll get cleaner, better races. So it is what it is. Greg Stanton said, did he push the safety crew member? Yeah, he kind of pushed him. I mean, it wasn't like he didn't push the safety crew member like he pushed Kyle Larson, but the safety crew member put his hand on him, telling him to stop walking, and he brushed it away and pushed his hand back. So he did push the safety worker, but it wasn't like I don't want to make it sound like he was out there double hand pushing a NASCAR official. He sort of pushed him like that. It wasn't as aggressive as he pushed Kyle Larson, but he did push a track official. Yes. Jermaine Boy said I saw reports already that said Bubba Wallace was suspended for one race. Yep, they got him for one race, and they're saying it was because he hooked him at speed. That is the official NASCAR reasoning. But me personally, I'm saying it's because all the stuff that went with it. It wasn't just the push to Kyle Larson. It wasn't just the walking across the track. It wasn't just the hook. It was all of those things combined is pretty much why he got the suspension, in my opinion. And that's just what it is. It's just my opinion. Everybody's got their opinion on it, and that's all good. Let's see. Nathan Urich, I'm just glad NASCAR did something. I may not agree completely, but at least it's something. Yeah, that's where I'm with it too. And it's just from a safety perspective. I don't really want to get into the who likes Bubba Wallace, who doesn't like Bubba Wallace. From a safety, and that's the only way I'm really looking at this, is if anybody else did it, I would want the same thing. At least sit them out one race. Let them know that hooking a driver, especially in this car, is not acceptable, especially at speed, because in certain situations, this car is unsafe, and safety should always be the first priority. So whenever any driver, and I mean any driver, and I said this about Noah Gragson and Carson Hocevar, whenever they drive like that, they should be suspended. And that would ultimately clean up the other series, and we would get better racing and better finishes, and we wouldn't have to manufacture all these stupid finishes like they've been doing recently with these late cautions. But let me hop off my soapbox and get over that one. Let's see. At least NASCAR finally got it right and only penalized the driver when it was clearly the driver violating, says Mark Martin fan for life. Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. You don't necessarily need to take away team points when it was just the driver that did something. So I think that is actually a very valid statement. Good point there. Mark Martin fan for life. Old home guy, do you think Thad Moffitt will develop into a good driver? I think he's already a decent driver. I just don't think he'll ever be as good as his brother. And I don't understand why his brother doesn't get more traction than he gets, because his brother's a heck of a driver. But Thad Moffitt has potential. He could get there one day. You just never know. And I'm sure he hates being compared to his brother, so I don't know why I did that. But I think his brother is the better driver right now. And I don't know why I'm comparing the two, but I think that's not what you asked me. So do I think Thad Moffitt has a chance to be a good driver? Yes. As of right now, he hasn't hit that level. So I would like to see a little bit of progression from him next season for sure. T-Van says Stuart Haas needs to field an Xfinity car for Deegan next year. I think that's probably the best bet for Haley Deegan. That's the best fit. And in that tweet you saw from Jenna Fryer, where they were talking to the owner of Haas, John Haas, I think is his name. He said right now Ford is looking for the best fit for Haley Deegan. And me personally, she has done whatever she did in the truck series. That wasn't a good fit for her. Trucks drive different than the cars. It's a good series to get some racecraft, but it doesn't necessarily dictate how good you're going to be in the Cup Series. So I think going to Xfinity is actually going to be a better move for her, and I would like to see her, even if it's the 07 SS Greenlight and it's really Stuart Haas equipment like it was the other weekend. I think you're right about that. I think the Xfinity is the best fit for Haley Deegan. And she did a great job. She finished 13th in a playoff race. That's not bad, especially for your only start in Xfinity. She had to get used to the car. She had to get used to a new team. She had to get used to a new spotter. So it was a pretty solid result for her. Brad Lamplot will not support Bubba or his sponsors or 2311, whatever their team is called, says Brad Lamplot. So yeah, he's not for everybody. You don't have to pull for him, and that's but I will touch on the sponsor thing, and I didn't think about it at the time. I really don't know. I don't necessarily think about the business side when something like that happens, but you do have to wonder what will be the sponsor fallout. Will a whole bunch of sponsors stay? Will some sponsors pull out? You just never know, because a lot of times if a sponsor is struggling financially, they'll take an opportunity like this and use it to pull out anyway. So we saw this with Daniel Suarez and Subway. Subway was not having a good quarter. They had committed money to Daniel Suarez, who at this time was with Joe Gibbs Racing. And Daniel Suarez walked around the pits with some donuts doing one of Rutledge Wood's little sort of Rutledge Woods culture things. And he was giving donuts to drivers for breakfast. Well, Subway saw this, and because they were Dunkin' Donuts, Subway used this as an opportunity to pull their sponsorship money away from, or it might have been Stuart Haas, but I think it was Joe Gibbs at the time. Pull the money away from Joe Gibbs Racing at the time, because they used that, because it really had nothing to do with Daniel Suarez in that situation, but they used that as an excuse to pull money away. You could see certain companies like this, if they're not having a good quarter, if the recession has affected them a certain way, probably shouldn't even have said that word on YouTube, to be honest with you. If the economy is affecting them a certain way this quarter, they might use a situation like this to pull their money away from Bubba Wallace. And it might not have anything to do with this incident. The business side of NASCAR gets really crazy. And I really don't see any business or corporation that's going to clutch their pearls and say, oh, what he did was so bad, we're going to pull our money. But I have been surprised before. But if a business or company is struggling this quarter, or their projections are not looking good, I could see a company like that using this as an excuse to pull their money. But I don't think anybody will, just because right now Bubba Wallace is selling a ton of merchandise. He's basically printing money. So I don't think any of his sponsors will pull out. Let's see. Balmy 39 for a high temperature in the corn patch today, says Mark Barnum. That sounds rather humid and hot. Make sure you wear your Hawaiian shirt and shorts, because I don't want you to sweat. Molten Rage says HRE reunites with Brett Moffitt. Would be an amazing story next year. If that happens, please, HRE, reunite with your championship driver and win the championship. Again, would be an amazing story. Yeah, I mean, that would, and he can definitely get it done. I don't know if Brett Moffitt will go. I don't know. I think Brett Moffitt will go wherever his best opportunity's at, and hopefully he can catch some type of sponsor that can get him to another level. Brett Moffitt, don't forget, is a NASCAR Rookie of the Year, Cup Series Rookie of the Year. So he's gotten it done just about at every level. And not that Rookie of the Year is the greatest achievement ever. It just means that he was the year he ran for Rookie of the Year, he was the best rookie that year. So he at least has potential at the Cup level as well. So Brett Moffitt has slipped through the cracks, and I would love to see Brett Moffitt getting some good equipment and have a nice season again, because I think he's a heck of a driver. He just can't find funding, and it stinks. I always hate it. I feel like this about a lot of guys: Parker Kligerman, Brett Moffitt, Kaz Grala. I don't know. Just name whoever you want to name. I always hate it when guys have a lot of talent and just can't seem to get that sponsor to get them in good equipment, even though you know they're really good. Not enough of a penalty. His apology letter was also pathetic and in poor taste, says Tyler S. So speaking of that, we'll talk about that letter real quick. So the reason that letter, and obviously it was written by somebody else, because we all know that Bubba Wallace doesn't really talk like that. Whenever you read something like core values of 2311, you know somebody wrote it for him, and it was somebody in legal or corporate. I think the reason that that letter was worded like that and somebody wrote it for him was to keep the sponsors. They wanted, and when you're dealing with this much money, and I'll just go ahead, and I hate vouching for him because I think what Bubba Wallace did here was a very dangerous move, but I will vouch for him here because when you're dealing with this much money, you want to keep the money coming in. So you will get somebody to write you an apology letter like that. And yes, it might have seemed disingenuous to us, but if you look through that letter, it checks all the little corporate check marks that you want to see checked. And also, it was worded in such a way as to hopefully not get him a suspension, but it did get him a suspension. But it was worded, this was before he got the suspension when this came out. It was worded so he wouldn't get a suspension, and it was also worded to keep sponsors. So that's why it came out like that. And yes, obviously somebody else wrote it, but at the end of the day, he co-signed on it. And we also live in a culture where it doesn't matter how you apologize. There are literally like YouTube channels where they just pick apart bad apologies, right? So it doesn't even matter. You can apologize. You can have the best apology in the world. Somebody is going to grift on it on YouTube and pick that apology apart. It doesn't matter how you apologize. And honest to God, I don't care what words are ever said in an apology. Somebody wrote the apology for Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace co-signed on it. And what matters going forward are never the words in an apology. What matters going forward are the actions. So as long as Bubba Wallace learns from this and doesn't hook any more drivers when he gets angry, that's all that really matters, because an apology doesn't really, apologies are just words at the end of the day. Okay. So what matters is the actions going forward. So we'll have to see what the actions going forward are, because I've never cared about the words in an apology. And I'm not going to be one of these YouTubers that grifts and breaks down word for word what this guy said in an apology and epic fail on this apology. Like you see him all the time on YouTube. Like I'm not going to, do that and go down that route, because I mean, you can look up the Kyle Larson apology. There are still YouTube channels that made 2 or 3 videos about how fake and terrible that Kyle Larson apology was. So I'm never going to jump on that train. It doesn't matter the words that are said. What matters are the actions that come after the apology. So it kind of, that's the way that goes. But yeah, obviously that was written by legal. This season has had more drama than the Godfather movie, says Mark 63. I agree with you, man. Like when I was watching that happen in real time, I was like, did that just happen? I was like, God, I was like, because I was just like, can we just have one race where we get through some other than Talladega? Talladega was no drama. I was like, can we just have one race where something dramatic doesn't happen? And we have not had that race yet. So I was just like, oh God, I was like, here we go. I'm going to have to, I was literally like, I'm going to have to talk about this now. And I was like, whatever. But whatever, it was a bad move. He lost his temper, and here we are. Let's see. I think NASCAR is at a point where they have to put the foot down on stuff. If they'll be consistent in penalties, this will be a good thing moving forward. Epileptic Bumblebee says, I agree with you 100%. Bumblebee, as long as NASCAR is consistent going forward and enforces the rules the way they should be enforced evenly for everybody, not Rick Hendrick Racing or Hendrick Motorsports get Rick Hendrick Racing. I say that a lot. Hendrick Motorsports gets this penalty, and because this team over here is smaller, they get a bigger penalty because we want Rick Hendrick money coming in, or Toyota, or whoever you want to pick on this week. I probably shouldn't have used a name as an example because everybody's, oh, you're a Hendrick hater, even though you vote for Kyle Larson. Let's see. That could be a blessing to Rowdy, says Tyler S. Oh yeah, about Ben Bayshore not being his crew chief. Yeah, a lot of Kyle Busch fans do not like Ben Bayshore. He is the youngest crew chief, obviously, at Joe Gibbs Racing. So to me, that was like, in my opinion, tinfoil hat back on. That was the writing on the wall when he got the younger crew chief, that they were cycling him out, and they were making a path for young Gibbs to go climb in that 18. Speaking of which, can they just go ahead and announce Ty Gibbs in the 18 and get it over with? Free to Pay says, I thought Bubba would have had time to think about how to react, but I used to think the same about Tony Stewart, but temper. There you go. Tony Stewart's another classic example. That's another guy that's a hothead. The SRX race in South Boston, I watched with him. That dude, he lost it. He's got to be 50 now at least. He 50 years old, and he lost it on like 22-year-old Ernie Francis Jr. And I was just like, oh man. I was like, whatever, dude. So, and then they made up right afterwards. Like Tony, he is at least old enough and wise enough that he calmed immediately down afterwards, and they worked it out. So it is what it is. But yeah, even drivers have short tempers, especially when they're in those race cars, and that's just part of it. Let's see. If someone puts Bubba in the wall, he will feel what they could have done to Kyle. What Kyle did, I don't. I get what you're saying. I just I'm having a hard time reading it. So I don't want to see any payback, because that would be just as dangerous as what Bubba did. So hopefully everybody, not just Bubba, hopefully everybody learns from this, and there is no more dangerous driving going forward. Period. On a positive note, shout out to Ty Dillon for picking up the 77 ride. So that's an interesting story too. Camaro 50, appreciate that. Yeah. So sort of a and just so you know, about a month ago, I told everybody that Ty Gibbs was going to Spire Motorsports. I broke that news, and nobody cared. I am going to find that clip of me saying that, though, and pat myself on the back when I can find it. But I announced it, and I was like, yes, I broke news. And then, nobody cared in the chat, and I was like, all right, well, whatever. I'll move on and talk about the next thing. But here, let me tell you why that's important. At Petty GMS, toward the end of Ty Dillon's run, before they announced he wasn't going to be back, RCR was giving him the setups to make sure it wasn't the equipment over there. Sort of just like a thing to make sure RCR wasn't giving them bad equipment. So they gave them the actual setups that RCR was using. So going forward, if RCR and Spire can work out a deal with Ty Dillon going over there to get the RCR setups, they can not only put it underneath Ty Dillon's car, but they can put the RCR setups underneath. And I know Spire is affiliated with Hendrick, but if they can get the RCR setups and stick them under the cars, that will not only benefit Ty Dillon, that will not only benefit Spire, but that will benefit one Corey LaJoy, who I think is a wheel man. That's another one I wish could get a good sponsor and continue on. And I think if you give Corey LaJoy some of these RCR setups, you'll see some fireworks from Corey LaJoy. No doubt about it. Let's see. Greg Stanton, Kyle Busch is not in the team meeting. He just only has contract with JGR at the track. Yeah, I mean, once you announce you're leaving the team, you're no longer in any of the meetings or anything like that. That is for sure. Same thing with Tyler Reddick right now. So that's just the way it is when you announce you're leaving the team. It's part of it. Let's see. Robert Stone, Kyle's the bigger man, is a bigger man than me. Put hands on me, and there's a lot of people saying that, and we're fighting. He had his helmet in his hand too. I'd be in jail, says Robert Stone. There's a lot of people that were like, Kyle Larson showed a lot of restraint by not attempting to fight Bubba Wallace. So just because I'm a Kyle Larson fan, I followed Kyle Larson for a long time. He's always said he's not going to get in a fight at a racetrack. He said, A, because I'm like 150 pounds and what am I going to do in a fight? And B, it's just not a good look for me. And, trying to attract sponsors. So I knew he probably wouldn't do anything unless he felt like he had to do it to survive. So yeah, I knew nothing was going to happen. And so luckily the pushing was all there was to that. So luckily that diffused pretty easily, but yeah. A lot of people had that same opinion, including some NASCAR drivers came out and said, if it happens to me, don't expect me to just sit there and take it like Kyle Larson did. And that was the other thing. People were like, Kyle Larson wanted no part of that. I was like, yeah, he wanted no part of it. He was giving up 60 pounds. You act like you would want a part of it if you were giving up 60 pounds to a man. Like if Brock Lesnar started pushing me around, I wouldn't want any of it either. I'm not going to be a moron. He would destroy me. And giving up 60 pounds to Bubba Wallace probably would have destroyed Kyle Larson. Let's just be real about it. I live in reality. I don't know where some of these other people live. So that was also a part of it. But yeah, given similar sizes, if somebody's pushing me like that, there's a good chance it probably would be on as well. But I think Kyle Larson made the smart move all the way around. Let's see, kind of off topic, but what's your opinion on repaving Rockingham Speedway? I hope they get at least a Truck Series race. And I don't know that they necessarily need a cup race, but with the allegedly they're adding 4 more races to the NASCAR season, which would up it to 40. Maybe they get a cup race. But that being said, I think it's a good track. It's not my favorite track, and I've just had bad experiences there. But they allegedly have fixed the traffic pattern down there, which was one of the you think the Wilkesboro traffic was bad? You should have gone to Rockingham. So back in the day, so they fixed the traffic. But every race I've ever watched at Rockingham has been an absolute blowout, absolute blown out. One guy leads all the laps. So I've had a bad experience with it. That being said, they have had good races there, even though I didn't get to attend them. Every time they have a good race, I wasn't there. But I think they should at least get a Truck Series race. They should at least get an Xfinity Series race. And if they show that they can sell a good amount of tickets for the Xfinity races and for the Truck Series races, I think then you think about putting a cup race there. So that is my thoughts on Rockingham. Also, I think there are other tracks in other regions because North Carolina, I'm a North Carolina resident. I'm a North Carolina homer, but I'm just going to be real. North Carolina has enough races. There are other areas in the region that need some races. And yes, Rockingham is a classic track, but if you're going to give a cup race to somebody, there are other regions that have good tracks. We don't need to make street courses in New York and all the other rumors that are out there. But there are other states that have really nice tracks, like Iowa has a great track up there that could be used. So hopefully they get a look as well. And, NASCAR doesn't, just Wilkesboro was good, so let's do Rockingham. Just don't give North Carolina 10 races and ignore the rest of the world. I guess is what I'm getting at there, because there's other places that need races as well. They've got great NASCAR fans, great race fans in other states that have great tracks that need some NASCAR Cup action there. Jimmy Adams says 2311 should make Bubba do anger management at minimum. I'm sure they will do something. There's no doubt in my mind that they'll get him right. Not necessarily for NASCAR, but because he brings in a lot of sponsor money. So they are going to probably give him some type of training to get him more polished to continue to bring that money in as well. So there's a lot of aspects to that he'll probably take some type of media training at the very least going forward. On a positive, no reason not to give Deegan an Xfinity ride next year, says Mark Barnum. Yeah, I think it's cool that she got a 13th in what has been a historically bad season for her in the Truck Series. She's actually, as far as statistics goes, regressed. Now, she's had a lot of mechanical failures and stuff like that to go with it. So it is what it is. Say Kyle, not Cal. Moody said the penalty was specifically for the wreck. I'm amazed there wasn't a fine due to exiting the car. I think the rule is knee-jerk but to Tony, but if it's on the books, they need to enforce it. Says Say Kyle, not Cal. Yeah, so that's what NASCAR is saying. But what I think personally is everything that went along with that is the reason he got the one race suspension. Just like when Kevin Harvick got into him and Greg Biffle got into it, I think, in a truck race, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm remembering correctly. And that probably would have been okay. Kevin Harvick probably would have been all right. But then when Kevin Harvick came across and jumped down and grabbed Greg Biffle like that and was shaking him, that is when Kevin Harvick got the suspension. And that's when NASCAR said, we're suspending you because of what you did on the track, not necessarily. But that's BS, because we saw other people do the same thing on the track. They didn't get suspension. I think it's a cumulative effect of everything Bubba Wallace did in that moment is why he got the suspension. But of course, NASCAR is going to say it was just for hooking him. And that's smart on NASCAR's part because it deters other people from hooking him in the race. Let's see. Lost my spot. Where was I at here? Douglas Serrano says Deegan should go to Front Row Motorsports in the Truck Series. That could be. They would have to expand and get another truck. But let's see. Epileptic Bumblebee says Bologna Burger simps for Austin Dillon. I do simp for Austin Dillon. I like Austin Dillon. I don't have a problem with him. I don't understand the Austin Dillon hate. Yeah, he drives the 3-car. Maybe if you're an Eric Almirola fan, I can understand the Austin Dillon hate. But other than that, I mean, he's come out and said I wouldn't be anywhere if it wasn't for my grandpa. So that's about as based as you can be in his situation. let's see. Mark Barnum says Deegan needs out of the trucks. Yeah, it's just not her cup of tea right now. Sonny V says his cockiness doesn't bother me. It's the other stuff. I mean, he's not for everybody, for sure. Let's see. Mr. J, Deegan needs a solid team. That's part of it, too. DGR has been down this year. DGR has some good years. DGR has some bad years. It's just been a down year for DGR. They'll probably be up next year because Toyota will probably dump a lot of money into them. Larson is a little guy. If that was Jimmy Spencer, Bubba would have not even got close to him. There's a lot of people that wouldn't have got close to Jimmy Spencer because you don't just fight Jimmy Spencer. You fight all the Spencers. Ask anybody at a short track from that era. Or Newman says that one guy. Let's see. Greg Stanton says, who is Deegan? Haley Deegan. Brian Deegan's daughter. Let's see. Kenseth got 2 races in 2015. So there you go. I guess because it was a playoff, he affected playoff points. So that's a good point to touch upon what you said earlier, Bumblebee, about it being a playoff driver as well. Kyle got 2 races. I thought Kyle's 2 races were the Xfinity race and the Cup race, but I might be remembering that wrong, Lee Fox. If anybody wants to check that, let me know. 1 race is fine, but putting hands on an official should be a huge fine or suspension, says Mr. J. I don't disagree with that. My only point that I'm making about that is Ty Gibbs and Sam Mayer hurt an official's knee, and they got nothing. Nothing was said about it. We saw the official go off on, at least I did, because I was live. I was watching it live. I was at that track. That official was taken off on a stretcher, and nothing was said about the dude's knee being hurt. I was just like, okay. And I was waiting for the fine the next day to be like, they got this amount of fine because they hurt a NASCAR official. Nothing. So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you can hurt a NASCAR official and not get penalized for it or fined for it, then just pushing a NASCAR official, you're definitely not going to get fined for it. That's what I'm saying. NASCAR, with their inconsistent, stupid officiating this year, has put themselves in a box where 1 race suspension is about as bold as they can go with this penalty, because they've been very lenient this year on safety, regardless of what they say to your face. So it is what it is, and I'll die on that hill because they've just been very lenient on driver safety. They remember their most damning statement this year is the driver is telling them that the car wasn't safe, and they said, well, we've looked at the crash numbers and we like what we're seeing. That's the most damning statement of this year, and that has set the tone for safety in the sport this season and the way it's officiated, and nobody's cared. So, or NASCAR hasn't cared, and so it is what it is. They can say what they want to, but I'm looking at the actions. Bubba is the new Kyle Busch. Cry, cry, cry. The only difference is that Kyle has talent, says Ryan Oliphant. Well, he doesn't have 60 wins, but Bubba Wallace does have 2 wins. He's been running better recently than he's ever run. This has been the best season he's ever had. But I do agree with you that him and Kyle Busch have a very similar personality. 100% agree with you on that. And I think basically in a nutshell, you're right about that. They both have a personality that people either love or hate. And that is why they ran a study. Gambling.com ran a study, and Bubba Wallace was the most hated driver. Kyle Busch was in that mix, but they were both in the top 10, top 5, I think. So not surprising that when you have an aggressive personality. I was surprised that Noah Gragson wasn't on that list of most hated drivers too, because he has an aggressive personality too. But I think the longer he runs in Cup, the more people he's going to rub the wrong way too. But you're always going to see that with guys like that. Darrell Waltrip, we've talked about him. Darrell Waltrip was hated for a long time. Then toward the end of his career, he was loved. It's always cool to see drivers flip like that. Kurt Busch, I just talked about him on an episode. Same deal. Freddie on Door Bumper Clear today talking about John Hunter is Denny's go-to guy. Yeah, so they were originally going to put him in the car anyway until Joe Gibbs said, put my grandson in the car. I'm just paraphrasing, but that's essentially what happened. He said, what about Ty Gibbs? Joe Gibbs doesn't walk up and say, what about Ty Gibbs, if that's not what he exactly wants to happen. So that's why I'm saying Joe Gibbs said, just put my grandson in there. Don't worry about John Hunter Nemechek. So that's my take on that. I think he should stay out for the rest of the year, says Brian Hinton. And so I've already touched on that. I think NASCAR's put themselves in a box where they couldn't do a fine like that. But in my opinion, 2 races would have been the maximum. 1 race I'm good with. If you sit out 1 race and you don't learn your lesson from sitting out 1 race, then going forward, maybe you're looking at a season suspension. John Smathers says no fine. Trevor Bain said he was fine just from walking. Yeah, and that's what I said. And that's what I was talking about on the inconsistency of the safety this year, John Smathers. you've looked at it all season. Like Ty Gibbs and Sam Mayer hurt an official. They got no fine for that. In fact, the only fine that was given out was Ty Gibbs for making contact to a car after the caution flag came out to end the race. So, like I said, NASCAR has put themselves in a box with how they've called safety issues this year. And that's just, I mean, there's no other way to put it. Now, if it had been a previous year, they might have a leg to stand on. But this season, they have been very lenient on safety. Regardless of what they say about safety is their number one priority and all this other stuff, I'm looking at the actions that they've done. They ignored the drivers on the safety of the car. We found out the safety of the car wasn't right. They said they're going to fix the safety of the car. They said they're working on fixing the safety of the car. We're still racing with the current car. I'm looking at actions. They said the car will be fixed for next season. I'm looking at the actions from this year, and they have been lenient on safety. So they can say safety is their number one priority all they want to. They can tear up in drivers' meetings all they want to. I don't care about all that. I'm looking at their actions, and their actions have been lenient on safety this season. Let's see. I wanted Josh Berry for the 77 at least. Berry ain't ever getting to Cup, even though he deserves it. And me saying they're lenient on safety, that's why I'm actually surprised that they suspended Bubba Wallace for one race. So I think it's a fair suspension. I think it's as aggressive as they've been on safety all year. So I wanted Josh Berry for the 77 at least. Berry ain't ever getting the Cup, even though he deserves it. I don't know about that, Bumblebee, because Junior just vouched for him on live TV. During the race, he said he wants Josh Berry to be in Cup one day. And so I really think at some point, Josh Berry will be in Cup. And I think that's probably who Junior is going to bring when they go Cup racing. Obviously, all the TV money and all that has to get sorted out before Junior moves to Cup. But at this point, I'll just go ahead and say it. I think it's a foregone conclusion. As much as he's talked about it, JRM's coming to Cup at some point, and their driver will most likely be Josh Berry. And I think that'll be a great story going forward. Unless they can get Martin Truex. Martin Truex would probably be the better driver to start it with, and then slide Josh Berry in afterwards. Maybe do a thing where like Martin Truex retires from full-time racing, and even if Kurt Busch is healthy by then, do like a Martin Truex, Kurt Busch, Josh Berry three-headed monster, and you get Josh Berry some experience that way, and he still runs an Xfinity for a year. And then after those two do their part-time farewell tour, then you can basically say, hey, Josh Berry's the guy. So that would probably be, in my opinion, the way I would see it going down. I don't know. Danny B Talk says it's already been announced that John Hunter Nemechek will drive the 45. Appreciate it, Danny B. Yeah, I figured that would be the guy because Denny said that he was originally going to be in the car before they went with Ty Gibbs in the 23 now. Originally the 45. So that makes a whole lot of sense. They probably already fitted him for the seat. They've got all the stuff ready to go. And I think that's who Denny wanted to go with anyway. But, you know, Joe Gibbs, I mean, I would do the same thing if it was my grandson. Like, hey, why don't you take a look at my grandson, see what he can do? I had no problem with that. I don't know. A lot of people don't like it, but I also say to those people that don't like it, I was like, what if it was your grandson? Would you help him? And they're like, yeah, probably, but I still don't like it because it ain't my grandson. That was one answer I got, and I was like, well, that's fair enough. At least you're being honest. Ryan Perez said, I thought Thad Moffitt and Brett Moffitt weren't related. I think they're related as far as I know. Let's see. Old Home Guy says William Wallace will be doing honeydew projects for a week and a half now. Well, he's getting ready for a wedding, so he's probably got plenty. He can. She'll probably have him doing plenty of stuff getting ready for that wedding. I'm 100% sure about that. So let's see. I like that Kyle was prepared for the first push, and Bubba went to his knee. I think that was another trigger that upset him even more. That's a good point, Aaron Flynn. So first off, I will defend the slip. If you've ever put on driving shoes, they are slick as crap on grass. So it's not surprising to me that he fell down on the first push. And probably when that happened, that made him even madder. And he said, I didn't get a good enough push on that one. So he came back for two more. So I think that is actually probably where the other two pushes came from. He got embarrassed because he fell down. And then he said, I didn't get all I wanted on that one. So I'm going to come back and get me some more. So I think that's why there were three pushes. There probably was only going to be one push to begin with, and then some junk talking. So it is what it is. I've been there before too, where you're mad and you do something stupid, and then you get even madder. Yeah, just a funny situation. Shout out to Danny B too. Check out his video. I watched it the other day. He's got a pretty good video on the Bubba Wallace incident as well. Check out his video. It was really good. I just watched it last night, actually. Flash Racing Entertainment. I think the reason that RFK didn't do the picture with Mark Martin is due to his Valvoline car being displayed. Wow, Valvoline is Hendrick's sponsor, and Castrol is the current supplier of their motor oil. So that is a good point, Flash Racing Entertainment. I had not thought about that. That could be 100% the issue. It might have been a sponsor call. So hopefully somebody reaches out to Mark Martin and from RFK and says exactly what happened there, because I would hate to see a rift open up between RFK and Mark Martin. Hopefully nothing like that happens. Let's see. Douglas Serrano says, my pick is Blaney for the Homestead win. That's a good pick. I'm picking Kyle Larson or Tyler Reddick. I'm being super conservative and lame on that one. No shockers or surprisers there. But that's who I'm picking for that race. Win. And hopefully Ryan Blaney just finishes second the rest of the year and wins the championship. And hopefully they blow up the playoffs. But that's just my opinion. If you like the playoffs, that's just my opinion. Don't worry about it. Enjoy your playoffs. There's nothing wrong with them if you like them. You don't have to like everything I like. Someone please give Corey LaJoy a better ride. He deserves it. But that's the Mark63 said, that's my point with this. If Ty Dillon goes over to Spire and they can work out a deal like Petty GMS did, specifically with Ty Dillon, for at least 3 or 4 races is what they were doing. They were getting all of the RCR setups on the 42. The 43 was still running the Petty GMS setups to see if it was the equipment holding back Ty Dillon or whatnot. If they can work that same deal out with Spire and you put that setup on both of the Spire cars where Corey LaJoy's got it and Ty Dillon's got it, that gives both of them a chance to win, and that really elevates and raises Spire. So there's a chance next season that Spire runs a lot better if they can get some type of deal like that worked out. And obviously with Richard Childress's grandson, you would hope they could work out a deal like that with a wink and a handshake. NASCAR Steelers, NASCAR Nation fan 50. No, they are not related. Okay, well, maybe they're not. I thought they were. Let's see, Sonny V, free Big Mac on Monday for every car Wallace takes out, says Sonny V. So there you go. He's got a promotion going for McDonald's. Let's see. What do you think about Haas speaking out on the 41 and different opinions with Stewart? Was that a warning to Custer, or yes, to focus on NHRA and get on? No. So Swan Dog, what I saw that as is Gene Haas saying, we're going to keep Cole Custer in the 41, and here's why, while also subtly telling Cole Custer, hey, we would like to see an improvement in performance. But I don't think they'll get rid of Cole Custer, because if you look at the open seats, he said Eric Almirola and Kevin Harvick he expects to leave. So even if you put Ryan Preece in another seat, why would you get rid of Cole Custer? Because then you would have to fill 3 seats, and in Ford's current lineup, I don't see 3 drivers that are Cup ready. I see Zane Smith in Ford's lineup that is Cup ready, and maybe Taylor Gray, maybe. Which one's the younger one? Whichever one's the younger one. I think he's possibly closer to being Cup ready, but I don't think anybody else is Cup ready other than Zane Smith. So you've got one guy you can plug in, and that would be a pretty good lineup, right? You put, Preece in the 10 or 4, then you put Zane Smith in either the 10 or the 4. That's 2 of your rides. And then you've got Custer and Briscoe. That's a pretty good young lineup, and that would probably be the better Stewart-Haas lineup. I think the reason Haas said that was to sort of light a fire under Cole Custer and be like, hey, we would like to see some better results, but you're not necessarily going to lose your seat for next year. Let's see. Steelers Nation said Bubba will never deserve all of this hate. Yeah, he's polarizing, so he's always gotten a bunch of hate on social media, and it's obviously really ramped up this time. So yeah, and even like people that don't watch NASCAR are making YouTube videos about the situation, and not all of them are educated on the actual wreck itself, and they're just sort of really cringe to watch. So you got a lot of like just all kinds of stuff that's all over the place about it, and whenever it's Bubba Wallace, it becomes political. So because it just is. All the things that went down, it became super political. When Bill Elliott drove the McDonald's car, which I don't do politics here, so I'm not worried about doing all that crap. When Bill Elliott drove the McDonald's car, the ads were great in the 90s. Yeah, no doubt about it. And those cars were really good looking cars too. Chris Davis, what the heck, dude, Baloney, you got to condone his actions. He just admitted that he harassed the McDonald's headquarters. Basically, you got to condone What's wrong? I don't know what you're talking about, Molten. Let's see. Uh, just making him miss a race is not giving him a bye week. That's not going to change Bubba's attitude. I don't know, man. Missing a race is a pretty big deal, in my opinion. I think that's about as aggressive as you can go as far as that goes. I don't know. Maybe 2 races, but I don't know. Missing a race, if missing a race as a race car driver doesn't bother you, you're not a race car driver. Let's see. I guess when you're Jeff Gordon, you can beat up Brad on pit road with Jamie Little right in the line of fire and not get a suspension. I mean, he should have got suspended for that, Sheldon Williams. I'm not saying he shouldn't have. I'm saying NASCAR has been inconsistent, and when it comes to a safety issue like throwing hands on pit road, that should be a suspension. And when somebody intentionally wrecks somebody, if it's proven that it's intentional, they should be suspended too. I'm not saying they shouldn't have been suspended. So, and I didn't have a YouTube channel back when Jeff Gordon did that, so I didn't have a platform to say anything about that. But yeah, I would agree. Whenever anybody does something unsafe, they should be suspended. Ty Gibbs and Sam Mayer should have been suspended for fighting on pit road, especially when they hurt the official. Like, I mean, NASCAR should put safety first, and that's just the way it should be. Let's see. Explorer said it was apology to Bell, Toyota, and sponsors, and nobody else. Yeah, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's why you could tell it was written by legal, because you've got a lot of money at play. You're trying to keep those sponsors. And I guess, I mean, you're trying to keep Christopher Bell happy. That's whatever. But it was clearly written to keep sponsors and not get a penalty, or get the least amount of a penalty that you can get. So I mean, I don't have a problem with the apology because, like I said, I don't care about anybody's words in an apology. It's all about the actions going forward. Anybody can say the right words. That's not hard. It's the actions going forward, and I think he'll probably learn from this. And I don't think you'll ever see him hook anybody else. But that's just my opinion. I mean, you'll see in the future. We'll all see in the future. So, old home guy says, if 3 cars need drivers at Stewart-Haas, I think Blaney, Buscher, Reagan, McDowell, Gilliland, Newman would be good candidates. I mean, Ryan Newman, that's one that doesn't necessarily get mentioned, but he still wants to do it. I don't know if they could get him. McDowell would be an interesting pick there for sure. Gilliland seems locked in with front row. I don't know, but he would obviously take a Stewart-Haas ride over front row. I'm not saying he wouldn't. Chris Buscher is pretty much locked up with RFK. I think they signed him to an extension the other day. I don't see Blaney leaving Penske to go to SHR, but maybe Reagan, McDowell, and Gilliland, and maybe Newman. You could see that rotation if they could find a sponsor for him. Dead End Viper said, "Were you at Ace Speedway on Saturday?" I was, and I was filming. I was at the top of the start-finish line. Filming, and I will work on that and hopefully get that out pretty soon. Question: how can a crew member be suspended for multiple races for a loose wheel? And Bubba could have hurt someone, parked for the season, fined 100,000 points, and docked 100 owner points. Says Bigfoot and Deadhead. Yeah, the wheels coming off on pit road. I've always said the penalty for that is a little too extreme. 4 races for a wheel coming off. I've always said that was ridiculous. But yeah, it's glaring. It's glaring that those are the 2 penalties for those 2 particular crimes or rules violations, whatever you want to call them. He didn't apologize for dumping Larson, says Explorer 33. And I don't think he will apologize for dumping Larson because I think he's still mad about it, because even Larson admitted that what he did was an aggressive move and that it was his fault. So he might not apologize for wrecking him. He might probably, I don't know, they'll probably talk it out and get over it. I don't see it going much further than that. A lot of times the stuff that happens just working on short tracks and stuff like that, a lot of the times the stuff that happens at the track gets handled sometime during the week. They all talk about it and sort of get over it. And you never really see it in the public's eyes, but, they'll be cool about it later. But the media will keep playing it up because it sells clicks and views and stuff like that. But a lot of times it's handled behind the scenes and nobody ever sees it. Brett Moffitt was really harsh to his team over the radio in the Truck Series a couple years ago, right or wrong. I think his attitude is holding him back. That could be M. William 213. I've always said there's got to be something going on there that's holding him back. So that could be an issue for sure. If they had included Larson in the apology, it would have looked a lot better. Just saying. I mean, I don't disagree with you there, but I think I think probably whoever wrote it included Kyle Larson in it originally. But then I think Bubba Wallace probably said, I'm still mad about it. I don't necessarily want to say it that way. So he did, like I said, somebody else wrote it, but he does have final say on it, and he signed it. And like I said, the apology, here's the deal. The apology doesn't matter. What matters are the actions going forward. And I'm not trying to toss away the apology like it's no big deal. But what I'm saying is whenever somebody apologizes in public, that is a famous person, there's always at least 10 YouTube videos about it, picking apart the apology. I'm not going to pick apart the apology because I've never cared about an apologies other than they apologize, and going forward, we'll see what their actions are going forward. So I'm not going to pick apart word for word what was said in the apology. Did somebody else write it? 100% somebody else wrote it because they're trying to keep sponsors. This is a multi-million-dollar sport. They're trying to keep multi-million-dollar sponsors. So yeah, somebody else wrote it, and I don't have a problem necessarily with somebody else writing it. But I would be more focused on the actions going forward than anything else. Jeff Gordon didn't use his car as a 170-mile-per-hour weapon. Says Mark 63, the retaliation was for iRacing. There's a lot of people that think that that's a stretch. I don't know. If it was for the iRacing incident, you would think it would have happened a long time ago. Let's see. Joe Blow says Truex isn't arrogant. I mean, I agree with you on Truex not being arrogant, Joe Blow, and that's why he's a humble guy, and a lot of people like him. Your quiet, humble guys have a ton of fans too. So I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Like when I was younger, I would pull for guys like Allen Iverson, these real aggressive guys that were young like me, because I was an aggressive young guy too. As I get older, I gravitate more toward guys that are quiet and humble because I appreciate that more. It's one of the seasons as you grow older. And in my opinion, there's a lot of people that pulled for people when they were younger that were like real aggressive. And as they get older, I've literally watched them. They pull for guys that are more humble and less outspoken. And I will literally watch a guy who pulled for somebody, and I'm just using Allen Iverson as an example because he caused the NBA dress code or whatever back in the day. So that was real controversial. I see guys that pulled for people like Allen Iverson and stuff like that, and they'll see a guy now that like runs his mouth and does some trash talking and like, oh, look at this junk, I can't stand it. And I'm like, dude, you literally used to love this stuff back in the day, and I would be playing ball with them too, and they'd be one of the ones talking the most junk. Now all of a sudden, I only like humble drivers and stuff like that. It's just funny how people change and myself included. It's funny how you change as you get older, and some people don't realize it, but I definitely I'm pretty aware of it. I realize I pulled for people back in the day that would totally irritate me now if I pulled for them now. And now that I'm older, let's see. Crazy Russian hacker is better with safety than NASCAR. Oh God, that guy's he's Angus 420. That guy's crazy, man. I watched a video the other night. He bought like a 27-pound box of utility Swiss Army knives or something like that, and they were all junk. He does some weird stuff. Bring Bubba back for Martinsville. We'll see how well the sparks fly. I don't think anything. William Wagman says that. I don't think we will see anything. I don't think you'll see any retaliation. As much as people probably want this to keep going because it's an exciting story or whatever, I think it's pretty much over with after the suspension. The media will probably pump it up to get more clicks and views. There will probably be like 15 or 20 more YouTube videos on certain people's channel that like to do a whole bunch of videos about spicy news or whatever like that. But it'll die out pretty quick. It'll probably be gone in a week, to be honest with you. It's a pretty quick news cycle. It's not anything that's going to be like, it'll be forever remembered in NASCAR fans' minds. But as far as the big hubbub that everybody's making about it culturally now, it'll be out of the news cycle in a week. I'm still going. Will Logano, Briscoe, Blaney, and Chastain for the Final Four, says Old Home Guy. That's a pretty good Final Four. I like it. Obviously, Logano's in there. I like Chastain. Chastain's been super consistent this season. Briscoe for the madness of it and Blaney for the madness of it. I would love, that would be probably the best Final Four that we can get of the drivers remaining. Because I think any of those drivers other than Logano winning would get a reset of the a reset of the points, not a reset, but they would at least look at the point system and maybe give it a little tweak at the very least. On Twitter, John Hunter Nemechek will be in the 45 at Homestead, says Mark Barnum. Yep, appreciate it, Mark. And I think Danny B told us that earlier as well, so appreciate Danny B. Definitely check out his channel. He's got a good one if you're not already. The trucks wreck all the time, yet they seem safer than the Cup cars. Totally different vehicle. So Mark 63. But yeah, they definitely do wreck all the time. That's why I'm saying if we take safety seriously from here on out, maybe you see a lot less wrecking. If you know intentionally wrecking somebody will get you a missed race and cost you potentially in the regular season at least a playoff spot, and even in the playoffs, it'll possibly can't cost you a championship. Bubba will get booed like crazy at Martinsville. Gonna make the stands rumble. Says Dusty Conger. He gets booed really loud anyway. Just to be totally honest with you, like I said earlier, they did the gambling.com did the survey of mentions on Twitter, and Bubba Wallace was like by far the most hated driver. So every race I've been to, he gets a lot of boos anyway. So I don't know if it can get much louder, to be totally honest with you, at Martinsville, but I guess we'll find out. That being said, the loudest person I've ever heard booed at Martinsville was Ty Gibbs. So I'll see if it was louder because I'll be there. I'll see if him in introductions gets booed louder than Ty Gibbs got booed when he got into the scuffle with Sam Mayer. Let's see. Ryan Newman in the 45 would be cool, says old home guy. Yeah, Ryan Newman coming back at all would be cool, but I think that's a long shot at this point. But I do wish he would come back because we didn't even get a farewell season with him, so that kind of stinks. William Wagman says that's why NASCAR only gave him one race suspension. He should have been out for the remainder of the year. Nothing said about punishing Kyle Larson and the official. This is BS. I mean, that's what I'm saying. They've been so lacking inconsistent with penalties all year. They sort of painted themselves into a corner. So it doesn't really surprise me that is it's probably the most aggressive penalty they could get, in my opinion. But it is what it is. The Gray brothers will be with Toyota drivers next year, says Mark Barnum. That is a good point too. I was saying in Ford's lineup, I forgot they're switching. So much going on right now with silly season and everything. I forgot the DGR is switching over to Toyota when I was talking about that. Good points. Herbst will go to SHR2. Yeah, Riley Herbst he's improved quite a bit, but he's not quite cup ready yet, I would say, in my opinion. Jamie Thornton says, I like the penalty, but I think forcing him into anger management would have been smart. If Larson and Hamlin had to take a diversity course, Bubba has proven he needs anger management. That's a fair statement. Those they have put those guys that make previous mistakes in similar situations. So that is a fair statement to make. I hadn't even thought about that. Let's see, Douglas Serrano. How will Larson respond to Wallace's apology? He's already responded. Not necessarily to the apology, but he's already come out and said that he's lost his temper in a race car before too. So he understood why Bubba was mad at him, and he understood why he did what he did, and he wasn't surprised by any of it. So I mean, Kyle Larson, you got to remember he races every day, just about all the time. He's probably been in similar situations before, so he knows how it goes sometimes. See. Bubba did the same thing other drivers have done before. So people trying to say he was any different or absolutely wrong, says Bumblebee. That's a fair statement. There's been tons of drivers that did the same thing, and they only got one or two races. So I mean, 2 races maximum. Like, we can quibble about how many races it should have been, but one race is probably as aggressive as NASCAR can get this season, because I feel like a broken record. I keep saying it over and over again, but they've been inconsistent on how they have done penalties. Let's see. I think Stewart might leave the sport, says T-Van. So there's been a lot of speculation about that. I don't see it could happen. I think Tony Stewart's just blowing blowing smoke. He's blowing some steam off. He does this from time to time. He gets really irritated in events, but hopefully he doesn't leave the sport. I don't really think he'll leave the sport. I think he was just trying to make a point that his team keeps getting penalized, and these other teams that he's pretty sure are doing the same thing are not getting penalized. I think that's his point. Let's see. Owners want owners want hard chargers, and Bubba fits that bill. Now the punishment is just about right. So he may have a week to rein it in just a bit, says Matt Robin. Yeah, I agree with that. Like you don't want a guy that's passive. You definitely want a guy that's aggressive. There's no doubt about that. And I'm talking about personality wise. You want all of your drivers to be aggressive. I was talking about the personality. Even his personality is like aggressive. Like Bobby Labonte was one of the most aggressive people you will ever see in a race car, and he still is one of the most aggressive people you'll ever see in a race car. But when Bobby Labonte gets out of a race car, you would be like, this dude doesn't hardly ever say a word. He's just really laid back. He's quiet. He's humble. But in that race car, he is an absolute monster. And that's all I'm saying. Bubba Wallace inside the race car, Bubba Wallace outside of the race car is pretty much the same personality, really aggressive, really outspoken. Whereas Bobby Labonte, just there are other guys that just had a different type of personality. Chase Elliott's another one. Chase Elliott inside of that race car is a monster. Chase Elliott outside of the race car, you're lucky to get 2 or 3 words out of him. So, you know, it is what it is. Aaron Flynn says ECR activity yet? I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about, Aaron Flynn. I'm missing the reference there. Let's see. Sorry if you already covered. Do sponsors care about driver behavior? Bubba, McDonald's, Kyle Busch, M&M's, or is any TV coverage good coverage? That's fair enough, because if you saw the and Moulton actually sent this to me. If you saw the post that Las Vegas made for the race in March, they showed Bubba Wallace pushing Kyle Busch, and they said round 2 come in March, whatever, and they even published it in the local Las Vegas newspaper. So it does, at least from the track, and I think the track is owned by NASCAR, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think it's one of Marcus Smith's tracks, but I could be wrong. I don't really keep up with stuff like that. It's not my cup of tea. But they were promoting it, so that's a fair question to ask. If you're really against this safety wise, then don't show and promote pictures of it going forward to promote future races. I would agree with that. And I always had a problem with this in the NFL too. NFL was always talking about we're all about safety, concussion protocol. Then they would show people getting hit, absolutely destroyed, to hype up pre-games and stuff like that. But they were concerned about safety. So you have to line up your values at some point, and you can't be so hypocritical in your advertising. PSG said they didn't do enough. They should have fined him too. There's a lot of people saying that. So, I mean, it is what it is. Like NASCAR, I mean, you can't pin them down on how they do anything, because it's just so scatterplot as to how they enforce their rules. They need a set of rules that they stick by and go by. They need to grow a spine, to put it another way. And so until they do that, you know, we're gonna have these penalties that look unfair, because you can always pull an example where this guy got a worse penalty than this guy, and this guy over here, you can say, well, he got a worse penalty than this guy over here. Like, it can go on forever and ever. It's infinite, and that's because NASCAR always rules on a case-by-case basis, at least these days, whereas they just need one set of rules for everybody. That would make things so much easier. Let's see, Jeff Gordon and most of the field was completely different era, comparing with today's field, different point structure and everything too. So that's what I'm saying. It's just all over the place. You can talk whatever you want to talk about it. Like I said, you can just find an example of anything and make your point. Like, so it's part of it. Let's see. I'm looking for tickets. My Daytona 500 2023. I would love to watch my first Daytona 500 race. That would be like, you definitely need to go to Daytona, even if it's not for the Daytona 500. Daytona is just a track to see. It is something else, and there's plenty of stuff to do there, even when there isn't a race going on. Send that check in the mail, NASCAR. Just kidding. Not sponsored by anybody yet. Let's see. Mark 63. I remember when Kurt Busch came into NASCAR, and he wasn't well received in his early years, but matured a lot. Hopefully, Bubba is the thing that finally starts that. that's what I'm saying. And OnlyFans McLaren 720 GT3 giving the thumbs up or said that right there, basically to that statement from Mark 63. That's what I'm getting at. Look, Kurt Busch came in there and everybody had an opinion about Kurt Busch. So, and it was typically not positive. So you saw him grow over the years, and by the end of his career, a lot of people liked him. A very similar driver to that was Darrell Waltrip. Darrell Waltrip's his original nickname was Jaws because he always was running his mouth and keeping something started all the time. So it sort of is what it is. These guys sometimes start off really aggressive, and just like I was talking about with the aging process, you age, you get older, you get more humble, you realize some of the stuff you did in the past was not representative of who you want to be as a person, and you learn from it and you grow. And every human being does that. And hopefully Bubba Wallace learns from this and says, hey, hooking Kyle Larson, even though I was mad at him, even though he ran me into the wall, that wasn't the smartest thing to do. And going forward, I will handle that in a much different way, even though, I don't agree with what he did here. And also the other thing is he took himself out of the race where he could have got that car repaired and had a good finish because he had an absolute piece. That car was fast. I think it wasn't really hurt that bad. And if they could have finished that race, he still would have had a chance at the top 10. It is what it is. Let's see. Drew Chronic says lawyer speak. Yeah, lawyer speak is always going to be part of an apology when you got this much money at stake. Drew Chronic, no doubt about it. Drew Chronic says also they have golfed together this year, and that's what I'm thinking. They'll probably have Denny Hamlin is friends with both of them, obviously. He'll probably invite them both to go golfing, and they'll probably settle it right there. They'll say what they need to say to each other, and it is what it is. Let's see. A lot of people calling for McDonald's to drop him as a sponsor. I don't think they will, just because he brings so much attention to McDonald's. It's one of their sponsorships. They get a lot of attention, and I think, like I said, this will blow over basically in a week as far as news cycles goes. So I think McDonald's will probably just wait it out. But I do think if there's a company that's sponsoring him and they're maybe financially on hard times, they could use this as an excuse to pull out. Let's see. PSG says, what do you think about Hailie Deegan's P13 finish? I think a top 15 in your first race in anything, in any series, a car that you're not used to, a team you're not used to, a spotter you're not used to, is always pretty impressive. And I think it's even more impressive that she did it in a playoff race against playoff drivers. So it wasn't like she was running against some scrubs in some other like lower series like that. She did it against like the best of the best when they're performing at their very highest level for the playoffs. So I thought that was really cool. Mark 63 says Corey LaJoy is a guy that's very humble. I agree with you on that. Let's see. Drew Chronic said Bubba will be on probation. Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind he's on some super secret probation. NASCAR does that a lot. Let's see. Mountain Grizzly says he thinks he got a slap on the wrist, plain and simple, because NASCAR leans a certain direction politically. To eliminate race and hate, follow their own damn rules book, regardless of woke stuff. If you break a rule, you get punished, plain and simple, says Mountain Grizzly. And to that point, that's what I'm saying. If you just have a set rule book that's got rules that are the same for everybody, you don't invite these conversations in here that are like, oh, they're just doing it because this guy's this, or oh, they're just doing it because that guy's that. And that goes not only for politics, but that goes with, oh, they're just doing it because this guy drives for Hendrick, and oh, they're just doing it because this guy drives for Spire, so on and so forth. This has been one of my things I've talked about all season. NASCAR just needs to be consistent with their rules. They need to consistently have a rule for everybody and stop giving this guy a penalty for this and that guy a penalty for that. Let's see. The worst part is half the channels covering the Bubba kerfuffle or TTS bots. Yep, you see a lot of it, and that's just part of YouTube. Everybody has a voice, and I'm good with that everybody has a voice. But unfortunately, not everybody has a brain. I'll just put it that way. I'm heading to bed. All right, appreciate your help, Bumblebee. Thanks. As always, follow Bumblebee on Twitch and Twitter. one of the best mods we got out here. Let's see. Greg Stanton, Dale Jr. Has had anything to say about Bubba on his podcast. I haven't heard anything yet, but he's got one coming out with Eric Jones. It's probably going to drop either today or tomorrow. So if he says anything, it'll probably be on that one. Let's see. Oh, I was way behind. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. I've done gotten super far behind. Douglas Serrano said, who is in the 45 this weekend again? It is going to be John Hunter Nemechek. It has been confirmed. Danny B let me know that earlier in the chat. We appreciate him. If you're not haven't checked out Danny B's channel, he's got a good one. He's got a good video on Bubba Wallace as well. So check that one out. Let's see. Did the 45 have a bad pit after stage one, says old home guy? I don't know if they had a bad pit, but he definitely lost some track position. I don't know if the other cars took 2 tires or something like that, but he definitely was back there in the pack. And he also said his car got off to a slow start, so he was trying to mitigate that as well. He said, but it came to him sort of midway through a run, and then they said also toward the end of a run it would fall off too. So he sort of had a car that ran good in the middle of the race and then would sort of fall off. So he was trying to maximize his track position when the Larson deal went down. Where will Trevor Bayne go next year, says Douglas Serrano? Hopefully he can get another deal worked out with JGR where he at least drives some Xfinity. Let's see. So just a lot of people talking about Bubba. I'm kind of over that. I think we've covered that. Like, there's a lot of other stuff we can cover. A lot of people want McDonald's to leave, and a lot of people that think they just don't like Bubba. So let's move on to something else. I've done an hour and a half on Bubba. Like, I'm sort of I'm Bubbaed out. Let's see. I can't wait to hear Eric Jones talk with Dale Jr. They both lost their fathers early in their career, says Ryan Perez. I think that'll be really interesting. And Eric Jones was he promoted this a little bit. He normally promotes stuff on Twitter, at least from what I followed. So I think it's probably going to be a really good episode. I fully expect it to be, and I think there will be some interesting perspective on it. So I think that'll be good. And if they broach that topic, I think that will be a really good topic to talk about as well. Let's see. Mark Bukowski. Haley did a great job, and now she has confidence on her side. Yeah, so I think the Xfinity car suits Haley Deegan a lot better than the truck did for whatever reason. And I think going forward, the Xfinity Series is her path to get to the next level if she can get to the next level. Obviously, she's got the sponsors now to take her to the next level if she really wanted to go. But I think in her mind, she wants to hit certain goals, and I think it'll be a better chance for her because the car suits her better in Xfinity. Drew Chronic says John Hunter Nemechek runs good there too. Yeah, so I would expect John Hunter Nemechek to do pretty good at Homestead. He likes to rip the top. He's had some really good finishes at Homestead, so I agree with you. I think it could be a super good race for them. See, Moulton says Cole Custer has had a great debut in 2019 in a Rick Ware Racing 51 at Las Vegas. He finished in the front of the HMS car, William Byron. That's crazy. So he has a lot of talent that just hasn't shown up in the 41 for some reason. Yeah, it is what it is. He might, like, as crazy as it sounds, he might actually just need a fresh start, whether it be crew chief or if he just needs to go back down to Xfinity. He needs some type of fresh start to sort of, I don't know, reinvigorate him, because he's definitely got the talent. It just hasn't come through. Even when he went down to Xfinity this year, he won the race. Let's see. Kurt Busch did the 45 proud. Would like to know his thoughts, says Greg Stanton. Kurt Busch is definitely team 2311. He's probably going to take a role with them. So I would expect him to be pulling for Bubba Wallace to come out of this. And you got to remember Kurt Busch's career. He started off, he wasn't the most liked driver. And by the end of his career, or what we're seeing at the end of his career, he's matured and turned it around for everybody. So you could see a similar arc for Bubba Wallace. Let's see. ML William 213 said, I was critical of Deegan in trucks. I was impressed with her Xfinity 13th with lots of green flag racing. Maybe harder to drive. Cars are better for her. I think so too. And also you can't not factor in she's had a terrible pit crew, or her pit stops have been really bad this year. She's had a lot of mechanical problems. So it's just been a bad year for DGR. So a lot of it, even though she's had a terrible year this year, not all of it has necessarily been her fault. Let's see. Justin Haley and AJ Allmendinger will make the playoffs in 2023. A bold prediction. Justin Haley had a good run. He was running pretty good this week. I was actually really impressed with him. He has turned it on the last half of the season, actually. Old home guy, DGR Trucks, field for next year. As far as I know, I think they are. They basically took all the drivers that KBM left, and they're now DGR drivers, if I'm not mistaken, as well as the Gray brothers. Did the Richard Petty driving experience at Daytona a couple years ago. It was an amazing ride to go 150 miles on such a historic track. I wanted to go faster, but they governed the cars at 5,200 RPMs. Says Camaro 50. That would be a trip, man. And I forgot what it was about the Richard Petty driving experience, but they're always like, buy this one extra, or somebody was telling me, always buy the extra laps because it's only a little bit of extra money. I'm not going to say a few extra dollars. But it's just a little bit of extra money. And once you actually get out there and start driving, you're going to want those extra laps. So that was his advice to me when I was doing a track day, because he told me he had done the thing, and I asked him about it. He was like, one piece of advice, add the extra laps because you're going to want them. And he was talking about Charlotte, but same thing for Daytona. Mark Wachowski says Haley needs to remain in Xfinity for a couple of seasons. The learning curve in Cup is extreme. I agree with you, Mark Wachowski, and I think she will 100%. Mark Warner said Heim and the Gray brothers in DGR next year, old home guy. Yeah, and Chandler Smith is going to Colleague, and I'm sure he will also make some spot starts for Kyle Busch in the Truck Series as well. This Conjure, who's your Final Four other than Logano? My dream Final Four is what was mentioned earlier, where you've got Briscoe, Blaney, and Ross Chastain, just because they're the non-favorites that are left, along with Logano. Who I actually think will get in there is going to be Logano. I still think Chase Elliott is going to get in there. I still think Ross Chastain will get in there. And I just got a feeling he's made it this far. And he's just sort of having Chase Briscoe is going to be in there, I feel like. That's just off the top of my head. I haven't sort of looked at anything else as far as that goes. Tom Harris, man, with the super chat. I really appreciate that, man. That is super generous. And thank you so much for that, dude. Who's your Final Four? I just read that one. Let's see. Justin Haley would have won Las Vegas if he was on new tires. There's a chance. Like, he had a pretty good car. Douglas Serrano says Trevor Bayne needs to step it up next year. I hope so. I'm just glad he's back. No doubt about it. Dusty Conjure says his picks are the 22, the 9, the 11. Oh, Denny Hamlin could be in there too, and the 1. So where we differ is you think Denny Hamlin's going to be in there, and I think Chase Briscoe has sort of hit some type of playoff stride, and he could also be in there too. Old Home Guy says any word on the KBM trucks? No word other than they're going to be Chevrolets, and that he is trying to get everything straight pretty soon so that he doesn't have to downsize his shop at all. He's trying to make sure all those guys keep their jobs. So they are working on it. So if for them not to downsize, he's trying to keep it 3 trucks would be my guess. They have similar arrangements in Formula One and Aussie V8s without the issues, says Explorer 33. I missed what we were talking about there. Let me know what you're talking about there, Explorer 33, because I've gotten off track and missed what you're talking about. Mark Wachowski says Rockingham getting a new asphalt and maybe soft walls. This is a great track. Yeah, and like I said, hopefully they get some trucks and some Xfinity, and those did do really well. And they will eventually get a cup race if everything goes well. That being said, if they get a cup race, I hope at least 2 other states outside of North Carolina get another cup race as well, because I think you can't have 12 races in North Carolina. Like, that's just too many races in North Carolina. Not that they've got 12 races, but you get my point. Let's see. Trevor Bain did great this year. Hopefully he wins Phoenix. I really hope so, says Moulton. I think everybody's kind of pulling for Trevor Bain. Tough story the way he had to go out, but also a good resurgence that he's racing again. So I think we're all happy to see him. Let's see. Greg Stanton said it will be interesting to see who drives the Chevrolet trucks for KBM. I think so too. I think Chandler Smith will probably be in one. We know Kyle Busch will be in one. I would assume all of the RCR guys are going to jump in one at one point. Probably in the all, he always has one all-star truck. What if Rick Ware buys out Smoke, says Old Home Guy? That would. I don't think he can, because it would make it a 6-car team. He would have to sell off Rick Ware Racing to buy into that one. So I don't know if that could happen, Old Home Guy, but it would be funny. My final 4, says Moulton, are the 22, the 11, the 1, and the 9. So that seems to be a pretty solid pick for everybody. I think everybody's going with the 22, the 11, the 1, and the 9. That seems to be the consensus so far. Tom Harris says, always enjoy the show. Keep up the good work. I appreciate it, Tom, and I will do my best going forward. Try to bring the best energy I can every single episode. And Daniel Miley says, the 22, the 1, the 24, and the 12. I like that. I like that lineup too. That's a good one. A lot of people are sleeping on William Byron. So he could definitely sneak one in there. These tracks coming up for William Byron are good tracks for William Byron as well. Explorer 33 talking about the wheels coming off. Okay, I agree with you there, Explorer 33. They definitely need to take some notes from them, and definitely some type of tether so we can get rid of the 4-race suspension for the crew members, so they can't say it's a safety thing. And M. William 213 says, not one word about Yugos. Yugos they stopped making Yugos in 1990, but I am looking for them because we're not close, but we're creeping a little bit closer every day toward the 10,000 subscribers. If we get 10,000 subscribers, I will get a Yugo or a Yugo equivalent and do some type of project for it. Let's see. Hopefully we don't hit it real soon, because I got to make some money before I spend some money. Let's put it that way. NASCAR said anything about Bubba? Just that he's suspended, and they didn't say anything past that. Elvis Fan 64. Camaro 50 says my final 4 is the 1, the 9, and the 22. And the 11. I missed the 11. Sorry about that, Camaro. Let's see. Dusty Conjure Briscoe might, but Martinsville might not be good for him. Homestead might have to make something happen. That's for sure. Yeah, he's not super great at Martinsville, but you never know when Martinsville is going to click for a guy. He's just had a good mojo here recently. Maybe if he just does good enough at Martinsville, or maybe he can make something happen here at Homestead. He's a guy that can rip the top too. Don't sleep on him at Homestead either. How did Miller get hired by NASCAR? Says Old Home Guy. That's a good question. How do you go from being in the biggest cheating scandal of all time to being a NASCAR official? That's a great question. Yeah, I don't know. Motorcycle to RCR to Richmond, gate to NASCAR. Oh, there you go. That is definitely an interesting career path for him. No doubts. Camaro, man, appreciate the super chat, dude. And cheers to you as well. I appreciate you saying it's a great show. I do my best, and I appreciate all you guys help and support. Let's see. Gene Haas may buy Tony Stewart out, but not Rick Ware, says Mark Wachowski. Yeah, so I think there's some Stewart Haas people that you scared, Home Guy. They don't want Rick Ware anywhere near their team, other than to be a support car for them when they need to put Priest in there on occasion. NASCAR needs to do a rotation on the track dates. That way each series has a different set of tracks. Yeah, that would be something I would like to see in the future, even if they go to 40 races. Like, maybe you're not guaranteed a race or 2 races every year. Like, maybe every other year you get 2 races. Get some type of track rotation. That way when you go to certain tracks, it always feels special, because you're like, oh, we're not guaranteed to have this race next year. We better go do that. Explorer was agreeing with me on the tire deal. Yeah, I agree with you, man. Like, they need to do something to make it safer, because a 4-race suspension for missing one lug is kind of tough. It's tough. Dusty Conscious said, led the whole race when I was there at Martinsville. Cold, 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 LOL. Talking about William Byron. Yeah, I was there too. Not only was it cold, but we got a little bit of rain. We got a little bit of snow. We got a little bit of sleet. We got a little bit of freezing rain. We got just about everything you can get dumped on your head. And my dumb butt didn't have a raincoat, so I was just sitting there in it, literally trying to get pneumonia like a dum-dum or something. I don't know. Something wrong with me that day, but I just refused to move out of my seat because I was like, I'm warm right here, and if I move, I'm going to lose some body heat. I was being stupid. But it is what it is. It was miserable weather. The race wasn't. It was sort of follow the leader. There were a few guys that could make some passes. Our old home guy says Yugo won't sponsor William Wallace. Yeah, it was like Austin Dillon could make some passes there. Ross Chastain was making passes there, and they were like, yeah, he's using his bumper. But he uses his bumper a lot. There's a lot of guys that use their bumper at Martinsville. But there were a few guys that were entertaining to watch making passes. Cole Custer was doing really good at Martinsville, actually. But before they had the terrible pit stop. But other than like a handful of drivers, and of course the 24 could make passes, he just had a rocket ship that race. But other than that, not too many people could make passes without getting some type of track position or doing a pit strategy or something like that. Rick Ware has help. Rick Ware has plenty of money. They got like a racing. They're racing in every series under the sun except F1. I feel like. Mark Wachowski, anyone can win Martinsville. Depends on how tempers are. Yeah, that's a fair statement. And also, it's not the classic Martinsville that it was because now they're shifting in the turns. So if you miss the turn, it's not as big a deal because you can downshift and kick back into it. Rick Ware has helped Clay and Top Fuel, says old home guy. And here's the other thing about Rick Ware. Rick Ware has been in NASCAR since at least 1994. He's not new to the sport. He's been in there for a long time. How did Robbie Loomis get to be Jeff Gordon's crew chief? Go figure, says Greg Stanton. Yeah, there's a lot of head scratchers in that particular deal. Let's see. Anger management class should be required for Bubba, like Kyle Busch had to do. Yeah, like that's one thing I hadn't really thought about. But yeah, they probably should do some type of anger management class because other drivers have had to do the same thing when they did pretty much the same thing that he did. So that's a fair take. Let's see. 18 inches of snow in Upper Michigan. Says old home guy. Well, that's good for y'all because at least y'all's infrastructure is set up for it. If we ever got 18 inches of snow in the South, we might not ever recover. The really famous picture of cars when it snows in the South is actually a picture from Raleigh. Like of all those cars, like there's this one picture of absolute chaos on a highway. That picture is from Raleigh. So that's what happens when it snows in North Carolina, at least. People lose their minds. And usually the people out there driving are, just to be totally honest with you, people from up north who are used to the roads being cleared off because their infrastructure is set up for it. And they're the ones that have a lot of the wrecks because they're not used to, we don't get snow down here. So when we get snow, we just stay in the house until it goes away. And they're not used to that. They can't stand it. So it's a culture shock to them, I think. I was sitting at the top of front stretch, brother. Yeah, I didn't move either, Bologna Burger. Yeah, like you felt like if you moved, you were going to lose all the body heat you had. I was sitting really close to the bottom. I might have been 5 rows up, but I was almost at the bottom. But I was just past the start finish line. The one cool thing I'll say about that, Dusty, was they brought the guy that did the Texas introductions, and I did film him doing the introductions. He did the really cool it's almost like an old-timey, like 1919 or 1910s carnival or festival. He just has a really cool way of introducing the drivers, and that was really cool to see live. That was a really cool deal. I've got it. You'll see that vlog probably when racing season ends. I'll get these vlogs together. That'll give me some off-season content. But I got about 3 vlogs that I need to upload, and that's one of them. Let's see. My Homestead picks are the 1 and the 12. Those are pretty good picks, Serrano. I'm being safe. I'm going with the 8 and the 5 just because they like to rip the top. Dusty Conjure says, yeah, he has, but old home guy, he'll get it together. I'm a 9 fan. I'm talking about Rick Ware Racing. Yeah, Rick Ware Racing actually does really good in other motorsports, by the way. Just not doing Squadouche and Cup. Let's see. Old home guy, what part of Michigan are you in? Jesus. Yeah, 18 inches is quite a bit. I don't think I've ever seen 18 inches in North Carolina. I might have seen. I've been in Philadelphia, but I don't remember how tall the snow got when I was there. But I don't think it was over a foot when I was visiting up there. Westchester, Pennsylvania, Jake's Bar or Jake's Tavern, Jake's Pub, uh, somewhere in Westchester. But Jake's is the bomb. I like that place. Let's see. Don't remind me that Martinsville race. We have that in the bag. Yeah, it was bad, Moulton. It was bad, dude. He had a good car for sure. Mark Wachowski says the 22 wins the championship. I personally think right now he's the favorite because they've got 3 races or 2 races to R&D before the final race, so they got a chance to find a little extra speed. They can do nothing but simulate Phoenix. Like there's a lot of advantages to being the first one to lock in. Lake Norman loves Bologna Burger, says Jamie Schweitzer. I appreciate it, man. Old Home Guy says, I'm in northern Minnesota, 420. Uh-oh. Northern Minnesota, that's, yeah, they definitely get legit snow up there, dude. Let's see. Greg Stanton says, number 22, please no. So, yeah, Joey's another guy that polarizes. You either like Joey or you don't like Joey. Joey wins Homestead for back-to-back Cup wins, says Jamie Schweitzer. How many people are going to be seated at the Chicago street race? Old Home Guy's asking. I don't have a clue. I don't know if they've even gotten that far yet. That's a good question. I don't have an answer for you, though. Mark Bukowski says, to Old Home Guy, northern Minnesota is southern Canada. Oh, man. That's possibly a Yugo project. Can a Yugo make it all the way to northern Minnesota to go ice fishing? We'll have to figure something out. Let's see. Dusty Conjure, Petty Tower. Yeah, that's where I was at too. So we were pretty close. I always like to sit in Petty Tower because I like Richard Petty. Petty Tower, I was sitting, enjoying the introductions. Be looking forward to the video. Hopefully it's good because I was down to my camera because my dumb butt dropped. I dropped the camera that I actually brought to record stuff, and broke the lens and the camera. So had to sell that one on eBay as used junk. You live, you learn. But I filmed it all on my iPhone, so I can put that on that vlog, or most of it on my iPhone at least. Ryan Perez says Austin Dillon was really impressive at Martinsville in the spring. He passed tons of cars when others couldn't. I was pulling for him. Yeah, he was. I don't know how they called it on TV, but watching it live, I was like, dang on. I was like, where is this Austin Dillon being? Because he was making some moves. Like he was coming through there like it won't no thing. But after a while, like his tires would give up and he would have to fall in and ride like everybody else. But I think he had really bad track position, but if he had good track position, he probably could have got a top 5 out of that race. Old Home Guy says, what's up with Blaney? I don't know what's up with Blaney, but I'm glad. I hope he wins the championship without winning a race, because that's another thing that could possibly get the championship format at least tweaked, if not changed. Let's see. Skylar Fitzgerald says the 218's in the house. I think that's Minnesota or Wissota or Wissota. Is that am I saying it right, Skylar? Wissota. Learned that one the other day. Minnesota and Wisconsin, Wissota. 60 degrees in 1996 here. Let's see. Duluth. Oh, 60 inches in 1996 in Old Home Guy says in talking about Minnesota. Duluth, Minnesota, says Skylar Fitzgerald. That's where she's at. Blizzard of 77. I was trapped at school for days. Drifts were over the roofs of houses and buses. Niagara Center. That's one thing I've never experienced in my life. I've never been able to open the door and look at a wall of snow. That's one thing that I've never experienced living in the South. So you guys have got an experience on me there. I saw it a lot in cartoons and movies and stuff, and I always, whenever it snowed as a little kid, I was like, "Is it gonna snow? Can I open the door and see nothing but snow?" Never happened. Met Joey the day before his 19th birthday, before his first win. A lifelong fan of the 22, says Jamie Schweitzer. I can't remember if I got all that footage. We met Joey Logano at Charlotte as well. He was still pretty young. He might have been 20 then. But we met him as well. However old he would have been in 2010. That's when we met him. So I've got some footage of that, I think, for another vlog coming out. A throwback vlog, basically the first vlog I ever did, even though I didn't know I was being filmed for most of it. So we've got a throwback vlog coming at some point as well. So look forward to that in the off season. Michigan is just Yankee Florida. So there you go. And everybody in Florida always talks about there's a lot of people from New York and Canada that moved down to Florida. So everywhere has their transplants that seem to come from certain areas, I guess. Was the point I was making. Race the Yugo in a 24 hours of lemons. It's a 1-liter engine, man. I don't know. I'll do it. We'll figure something out there. Yeah, the Yugo, I've looked at some of the specs. It's a 1-liter engine. I don't know if we're going to get any speed out of that rascal. Let's see. Old home guy, about 20 miles from the tree hugger part of Canada. That's all of Canada, ain't it? Y'all love wilderness, right? Let's see. Oh man, there's a really cool show that they filmed in Canada called Man Tracker. That was a really cool show. They did away with it, but I used to watch that. It's basically a guy that rode on a horse, and he was I guess he used to be a Mountie, but now he was like basically a bounty hunter. And the deal was if you could outrun him to a certain spot, Man Tracker, I think is what it was called. That show was cool. That was filmed in Canada. That was a good show. Let's see. Austin Dillon, off on another tangent. Austin Dillon did get a top 5 at Martinsville. He finished 3rd. Oh, there you go, Ryan Perez. So, yeah, he did have a really good car. I was so cold. I was just ready for that thing to end. And that last caution almost drove me insane. Like, oh, man, it's bad, dude. It was bad. I just remember nobody was touching the Raptor car, the number 24 Raptor car. But yeah, Austin Dillon, he did get 3rd, didn't he? How about that? Let's see, Logano Chastain rivalry. Says Serrano. They said they would love to race each other going forward. They said they enjoyed the way they raced for sure. Skylar Fitzgerald says Wasota Auto Racing Series, mostly Minnesota and Wisconsin, but Canadians and other Midwesterners also participate. Sorry to hear about the camera, brother. I might go to Martinsville race. My buddy gets free tickets from his father-in-law. Oh, those are the best tickets, Dusty. I'm only 160 miles from there in Virginia, 20 minutes from Richmond. I hear you, man. Spent some time in Mechanicsville. I bought a Miata in Richmond. I think it was Richmond. So I've been up that way before as well. Let's see. Hope to see you, Bologna Burger. If I go, I'd like to meet you, brother. Well, I'll be there, and I'll try to do some type of schedule of where I'll like sort of be hanging around at. Even if it's just like where I'm going to park my car and hang out for most of the pre-race, or before gates open or whatever. Because I'm going to be there for the Xfinity race and for the Cup Series race. Let's see, Jamie Schweitzer. I sat in on the next gen testing last fall at Charlotte. Met and hung out with Joey, Blaney, and Richard. Many pics and videos on my TikTok. That's cool, man. Let's see. What's Carl Edwards doing now? Says old home guy. He what is that dude doing? He's with some like organization now. He was working with some like relief organization for like tornadoes or something last time I saw him. And he said he's not in racing shape anymore. So he wouldn't rule out a comeback, but it's not anytime in the future. I think the words were, he said, "I'll never say never." I made an episode about it in the preseason before this season started. But it was an article from John Newby at the Heavy. So if you look up Carl Edwards, John Newby at the Heavy, it'll probably give you a result for that article. I swear Cole Custer's pit crew are the same pit crew that pits Deegan in the trucks. They're literally the same. How can you have a good run and they will literally screw it up? Yeah, she's had bad luck in the pits, and so definitely has Cole Custer. Dusty says, I met Joey in 09 when he was rookie. Joey is tall. I'm 6'1". He's taller than me. He was at Richmond Raceway around 20 minutes from my home. So there you go. Richmond Raceway is a good track to go to, too, if you've never been. I know a lot of people complain about the racing that it puts on now, but it's a great venue to visit. They've got an amphitheater that usually has a bunch of free concerts when the race is going on. I think I've said before, I saw Big and Rich there before they had just released their first album. But it was before they were like mega famous, I guess. 32 degrees in West Virginia, and they get a lot of snow, says Tom Harris. A lot of West Virginia fans. So always good to see the Mountaineers up there. Really cool. West Virginia is a really cool place to watch a football game, too, if you're into college football. It's one of the better stadiums. Probably that and Virginia Tech are probably the two best ones I've ever visited. Maybe some watermelon smashing in Martinsville, says Greg Stanton. It could be. It could be. Ross had a pretty decent car. He just he didn't quite have enough to get up there with Logano and William Byron and Austin Dillon. But he was one of the guys making some moves too. Todd Gilliland just slapped the wall. No need for the caution, says Dusty. Yeah, that was a big deal in the. I think you're talking about the Xfinity race. Somebody just got loose and they threw the caution, and really was no need for one. Logano had talking about Ross Chastain here. Logano had him covered in Vegas when he caught the one car. Watched the in car of the 22. He was off the gas a lot. Yeah, no doubt. But Ross Chastain was throwing every block under the sun. He did everything he could do. It was fun to watch him try to hold on to it, but everybody knew the inevitable was about to happen. But to see him just not give it up, and they raced each other really clean, and it was just some really good racing. That was really fun to watch. So hopefully going forward, they'll put on some more shows like that if they go for the lead. Charlie Tuna says, notice the broadcast rarely shows the manufacturer on the grid. I understand they're all the same now, but I miss the old manufacturer rivalry. I do too. They don't ever hardly show the manufacturer points. I miss back in the day when they would have one camera guy walking down pit road, and then on the sides of the TV you would have the two drivers like as they walk past the car, you would have the car like down here, and then you would have like a picture of the driver, his name, and then usually underneath of them, this was like in the 80s or early 90s, you would have an actual picture of the car too. I miss the old rundown because they did every single car that way, whereas today they'll do the top 10 and you'll see all their faces, and then the rest of it is just like a rundown of sort of just their name, and they don't even do the manufacturer anymore. Good luck to John Hunter Nemechek, says Jamie Schweitzer. Yeah, hopefully he has a good run. NASCAR left Carl Edwards heartbroken and pissed. May never see him again in a cup car, maybe some dirt. Yeah, he didn't. He got very frustrated with the way it ended. Obviously, he got worked over by the chase system, whereas now these drivers are getting worked over by the playoff system. Last two races were won by cars taking tires on a late race caution. Something to look out for, says M. William 213. That is a good point. We finally got some tire fall off, so that's always good. That brings pit strategy back into play. Let's see. I remember when Crazy Old Smoke punched a reporter at Indy. I think it was 2002, says Ray Scrub. I did not follow IndyCar back then, but I do think I vaguely remember a story about him punching a reporter. So yeah, he's another hothead. That he's still a hothead, to be honest with you. Like I said, when I went to the SRX race in South Boston, he had Ernie Francis by the collar, telling him this, that, and the other thing. Let's see. Molten Ray says no. Todd Gilliland brought out the last race of the last caution at the Martinsville race. Okay, even though all he did was smack the wall, not even that hard. Okay, so like I was sitting, I didn't see all that, and I wasn't looking at the screen. I was actually looking at the cars on the track. They do have a screen you can watch the parts. I was sitting really low. The parts of the track you couldn't see. So yeah, I think at that point my eyes had frozen open. And if I blinked, the ice crystals would have fell off of them. So I was just trying to hang on. So he was, that makes it even worse. Cause I just remember that last caution coming out, and I was as cold as I was. I got warm because I got so freaking mad inside. I was like, who brought out a caution? And I didn't know it was NASCAR trying to engineer a exciting finish. Let's see. Tony's pissed and hopping back in a car in 2024 just to show him something, just to yell, says old home guy. I want Honda to join or VW, says Mark Barnum. I think Honda is pretty close. At one point, Volkswagen was really close as well. But also, they had Dieselgate, and when Dieselgate happened, that's when Volkswagen pulled out. But I have a pretty reliable source that told me that Honda, Dodge, and VW, this is probably around 2013, 2014, all had cars ready to go for the next gen. So they have all at least been exploring. So I would say Honda, Dodge, and VW. If another manufacturer comes in, that's where it's going to come from. So they're a lot closer than what a lot of people realize was the point of that. Let's see. Jamie Schweitzer says, I love your intro. Next, pointing to the top left of my screen. I appreciate it, Jamie Schweitzer. I will do every year from here on out, because it's polarizing as well. Some people can't stand it. Every year from here on out, before the season starts, I will run a poll on this channel if you want to see the finger point or not. So look for that before the Daytona race. This year it was voted, obviously, to keep it. So we'll see what happens next year. And it wasn't close. So it's 10%. We'll see if the 10% increases or decreases going forward. Dusty Conjure says, great infield fan experience for NASCAR fans at Richmond. People need to experience it. A lot of autographs from both races this year. Only $60, including seats. And seat tickets, $45. So that's not the worst deal in the world, no doubt about it. Because I think it's like $145 for the upper terraces or the upper seats. I think $124 for some seats I've seen. So for the price of like one seat, you can get that full experience there. Old Home Guy says, are you racing this week? I'm not racing this week. I'm not going to race till next year. But I might be, if I've got a guy that might race. And if he races, I will show you a picture of where my logo is on his car, and it looks pretty cool. So stay tuned for that. We will see what happens. And he's racing a late model. So we'll see what happens with that. So Ryan Perez says, an interesting thing to note is that Dodge just said, I might actually have two. Like, you've seen my logo on Craig's car. This is an additional car that is actually going to carry my logo. Let's see. An interesting thing to note is that Dodge just said that their plans to join NASCAR are stalled, but not completely over. Yeah, that's something I brought up the other day when everybody's like, it's over with, including myself. I misread that. So they're stalled. Also, you got to put spicy titles to get clicks. Everybody on YouTube's guilty of that. They may just be waiting for a more opportune moment to join. I agree with that, Ryan Perez. I think all the negative press is what made them pull out momentarily, and it could also don't think for 1 second that this couldn't be a negotiating tactic as well. I miss being able to go to live races, but with the day's pricing, large family, and being in Wyoming, the closest track is Vegas, 14 hours away. I just can't. I totally understand that, Mark Martin fan for life. Yeah, 14 hours is a long haul, especially to spend all that money. And as much as ticket prices are low, everything's, well, it depends on how you do Vegas, but things in Vegas can get out of control expense-wise. But you can also do Vegas pretty cheap, but you can't do Vegas pretty cheap on a weekend. So there is that. So you're definitely going to get gouged there, probably a little harder than you would get gouged at other tracks. May the Ford be with you. I have to cook dinner, says Mark Barnum. That's a pretty good one. I hadn't heard that one before. I'm going to wrap it up here in just a few minutes. Starting to wear out. Let's see. Also in that race, for some reason, Clint Boyer did some reason called Todd Gilliland, David Gilliland. Clint, that's not David. That's Todd. Yeah, that's pretty easy. Clint probably talks to his dad all the time, and he's just used to saying that. James Schweitzer, appreciate the super chat. He says, ready to name your pick for the other three finalists. Okay, so Joey Logano, I've got Chase Elliott, I've got Ross Chastain, and I've got the 14 car of Chase Briscoe. I think that's my final four, just because I feel like Chase Briscoe's got some mojo going on. If Chase Briscoe doesn't make it, my alternate would be the 24 car of William Byron, because I feel like nobody's talking about him. I would have had Christopher Bell in there if he hadn't got caught up in that wreck. So that would have been my final four. But once Christopher Bell got caught up in that wreck, I switched it out to Chase Briscoe because I just feel like he's got some momentum for some reason. But that's it. Charlie Tuna says, I voted finger last time. The finger looks super long in the corner of the screen. Yep, that's one of the neat camera tricks you learn. The closer you get something to the screen, the bigger it looks. Go with that where you may, but I might not read it. Let's see. Supreme Baller says easily for the whole year. He wants Bubba going for the whole year. Look, I think doing one race is as aggressive as NASCAR has been for safety all season. So, I mean, I see a lot of people making that argument, but NASCAR has been so slack on safety all season. If you look at their actual actions, that I'm surprised they even suspended him for one race. So yeah, it's all good. I see both sides of that argument, but I think one race is probably sufficient. Maybe two races, as some people have pointed out. Other guys for a similar situation got two races. Ty Dillon does nothing at all in the 41 Spire, 42 Spire. We want him in our ride. So Moulton, not a fan of Spire's pickup there. Tom Harris said yes to the finger point. It's your thing. Race weekends are the most expensive to fly and stay at Vegas. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Let's see. Dodge isn't even going to have a gas-powered car. Don't see why they would come on board, says M. William 213. Allegedly, Chevrolet is not going to have a gas-powered car either. So we'll have to see how all that plays out. That's going to be something very interesting to watch going forward as well. Jamie Schweitzer says, I predicted the 4 remaining Bs will be eliminated, and I like Blaney. Yeah, Blaney's had a super consistent season, but it is what it is. Martinsville 2022 caution, Clint Boyer caution, David Gilliland, me, excuse me. That's Todd Gilliland. You're telling me David somehow went invisible, went into the 38 and drove it into the wall? Okie dokie. Yep. Old Clint got excited, made a mistake there. Supreme Baller said it was such a terrible wreck, to be honest. Yeah, it was definitely unsafe. And I'm not saying anything about the safety of the race or of the move in the race. I'm just merely pointing out that NASCAR has been so inconsistent all season with the penalties that they sort of boxed themselves into a corner where they couldn't be super aggressive with this penalty because Noah Gregson, Carson Hocevar have all had similar things where they wrecked somebody intentionally, and they didn't even get a one-race suspension. So that's why I was saying I'm surprised they even suspended him for one race. Was where I was going with that. Haven't seen something this intentional and trying in a while. Well, I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, but we have seen it in the past. But it has, I guess, Carl Edwards, Matt Kenseth, whichever one of those was the most recent, will probably be the most recent one that it was that egregious. Electric cars don't work up here when it's 20 to 60 degrees below, says old home guy. Yeah. They'll sort of have to figure something out like they did with the with diesels where you got the warmer, the engine block warmer or whatever. So it is what it is. Supreme Baller says, I'm a fan, brother. I appreciate it. Yeah, I see where you're coming from, Supreme Baller. I'm just saying I don't know where NASCAR is so inconsistent. They back themselves into a corner when they want to. If they really want to punish somebody, now they can't do it just because they've been so inconsistent all this season. So what you missed on our previous conversation was we were talking about if NASCAR can just get one set of rules and make it fair for everybody down the line, that's something they need to look at going forward. Douglas Serrano, are they really sabotaging Kyle Busch? I don't know. He's had some bad runs, but last weekend he had a really good run. So we'll have to see going forward. It's one of those things. It's what you want to believe. You see what you want to believe. So I have no clue. Dusty Conscious says that new Chevelle might be Chevy's answer for their new car because the Camaro is stopping in 2023. Yeah, and I still haven't seen actual pictures of the new Chevelle. I've just seen artist renderings. So I'm going to be interested to see what that thing looks like. Jamie Spicer says the local scuttlebutt in Charlotte is that MJ is disappointed with Bubba's public image. And I could see that because that was always a big thing for Michael Jordan was his public image. He wanted it to be really good because that's how he became a billionaire. He had a good public image and he could sell, in his case, sneakers. Bubba Wallace is selling, merchandise of a different sort. But I could definitely see that being sort of a problem for Michael Jordan as well. So it is, I definitely could see where that would be a thing. Old home guy says it's the batteries that don't like the cold. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you warm up the batteries, they'll start working because that's just, well, they have these solid state batteries. If they ever get them things figured out, that would negate it. But if you warm up the batteries, all the stuff can sort of flow and do what it's supposed to do. But once they get cold, they freeze. So that's what I'm saying. You would have to have some type of temperature regulation inside of it. Just like diesels, you have to have the block warmed up before you start them. That's what I was getting at there, home guy. Let's see. Kyle is no longer welcome in the team meetings at JGR. Yeah, that's just part of switching to a new team. Mark Martin fan. See, like I said at the very beginning, nothing to talk about. Great show. I'm out. All right. Appreciate it, Mark Martin fan. And with that, I'm fixing to get out. I'll get this last one from here. From home guy. KB was looking like second place before hitting the wall at the end, but held third. Yeah, no doubt. Ross raced him as hard as anybody could be raced. There's no doubt about it. And that's it for me, guys. I appreciate it. It was fun as always. And other than that, thanks for your time. Peace.